Chapter 1904, Chaotic Battle, 3, All right. Ji-yun glanced at Lung Ruoxue and nodded. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the crowd. At this time, the evildoer's gaze turned to Yu-chin. Yu-chin did not wait for the evildoer to speak and hurriedly said, I also agree with this method. Let's work together to deal with the others first. After saying that, he went to contact his family members. What about you two? The demon glanced at Zhou Kun and Meng Bao again. Zhou Kun shuddered, but he could not make the decision. Meng Bao, on the other hand, said confidently, No problem. We have no objections. You have no objections? Can you be the head of the Zhou family? The demon smiled faintly. He didn't really believe Meng Bao's words. He'll think of a way to convince them. Meng Bao said confidently. After that, he dragged Zhou Kun away and left for the time being. Needless to say, Lung Ruoxue and the others knew that Meng Bao had gone to talk to the Zhou family. Half an hour was a very short time, and it passed in the blink of an eye. Therefore, many families seemed to be a little flustered. However, every family basically had a few allies or close families, so even if they were a little flustered, they still managed to pull in a lot of partners for their family before the primary selection began. There were only a few minutes left until the end of the half hour. A huge screen appeared in the sky above the square where they were. There were only 2 lines of words on the screen. One was the countdown to the preliminaries, and the other was the number of participants. Number of players, 5987625. Lung Ruoxue did not expect the public square to be able to accommodate tens of millions of people. This was only the tip of the iceberg for the various clans. After all, each clan had less than 30 participants. One could imagine how many clans were participating. As the countdown reached the last 5 seconds, the atmosphere became more and more tense. When the countdown on the virtual screen reached 0, everyone's hearts couldn't help but jump to their throats. In an instant, someone made the first move, and then the scene fell into a chaotic battle. In this preliminary, everyone's strength had not been adjusted to the same level as their opponents. As a result, the stronger ones naturally had the advantage. In almost the blink of an eye, many people disappeared with the white light. Whether it was the losers or those who had lost their lives, none of them would remain here. The number of people on the virtual screen was also decreasing at a speed that was not visible to the naked eye. Lung Ruoxue and the others did not make a move. Instead, they watched on coldly. However, they did not hold back against those who provoked them and wanted to fight with them. After severely injuring their opponents, they disappeared into the white light without any exception. Miss, have they been teleported out? Lu Tao asked curiously. It should be, Lung Ruoxue nodded. It seemed like there was a set of judging criteria here. Those who were determined to be the losing side would be teleported out. However, there were also those who were teleported out immediately after death. After all, not everyone would have a sense of propriety in their attacks. There was a considerable number of people who were extremely brutal in their attacks. They would not care about the life and death of their opponents as long as they won. Of course, it was also to end the battle as soon as possible. After all, there were too many participants. Miss, when do we make our move? Seeing the other participants fighting in full swing, Feng Di's hands were itchy. However, although they had not made a move yet, they had already defeated many participants. Of course, they were all the ones who came to their doorstep. No rush. Let's wait and see for now. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. The number of people was still a little too many to her. If she were to make a move now, they would be exhausted to death before they could clear out all these people. Lung Ruoxue would never do something that was not worth it. Moreover, there seemed to be many people who had the same idea as her. As the number of people on the scene decreased rapidly, more and more people started to move. Of course, there were also people who had their eyes on Lung Ruoxue's group. After all, their strength was not high. However, Elder Yi and the other members of the Ning family had been guarding the periphery of Lung Ruoxue's group. Seeing the aggressive Ning family, those who wanted to take advantage of them had to think twice. Lung Ruoxue and the rest did not know whether to laugh or cry when they saw how many people were hesitating. It seemed like the power of the Ning family was greater. At the very least, with them around, some random people would not dare to come forward. Elder Yi, with you around, fewer and fewer people will dare to find trouble with us. If this continues, I'm afraid we won't have the chance to make a move again. Feng De grumbled. When Elder Yi heard this, he looked at Leng Ruoxue and the rest with an aggrieved expression. So, could they be blamed? Before he came here, the family head had instructed that not only must he listen to Leng Ruoxue, he must also protect her well. Otherwise, if Leng Ruoxue were to hurt even a single hair on her head, he would be banished. Of course, the prerequisite for all this was that they had the chance to meet Leng Ruoxue. And now, they were with Leng Ruoxue. Hence, in order to prevent themselves from being banished, they could only treat Leng Ruoxue and the others as rare animals and protect them closely. Calm down. There will be a chance. Leng Ruoxue glanced at Elder Yi and tried to hold back her laughter as she consoled him. There were still more than 30 million people. You'll definitely have a chance. Looking at the numbers displayed on the screen, Elder Yi quickly chimed in. Although the battle had only lasted for less than an hour, more than 20 million people had already been eliminated. Such a speed was simply the speed of light. Elder Yi couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, a small group of a few hundred people charged towards them. Instantly, Elder Yi raised his guard. However, when he caught a glimpse of Leng Ruoxue and the rest's calm expressions, he broke out in cold sweat. Was he making a big fuss over nothing? In fact, Feng De and the others were excited when they saw these people. Each of them was so excited that their faces turned red, and their eyes were even shooting out hot sparks. Looking at those people who were rushing towards them, Feng De and the others felt very kind. It was as if they had reunited with their family after a long time. However, the weapons that appeared in their hands shattered the possibility that they were family. Seeing the excitement of Feng De and the others, Elder Yi's forehead was full of black lines. This group of people were really a group of warmongers. Forget it. Since they wanted to fight, then he would give them this opportunity. At the same time that Elder Chu thought of this, he also made up his mind that he and the others would protect them from the side. Thinking of this, Elder Yi gave a look to the Ning family. Then they made way for him. Feng De and the others rushed out like arrows. There were only a few people in Feng De's group. When they rushed into the crowd of hundreds of people, the weapons in their hands were swung at the other party as if they were cutting watermelons. His hand rose and his blade fell. With a flash of white light, dozens of people disappeared in the blink of an eye. And their attacks were absolutely ruthless, accurate, and fast. He didn't waste any opportunity to attack. Every time he swung his weapon at the opponent, dozens of people would be taken away by the white light. Soon, the small group of hundreds of people was left with only a few dozen. When the dozens of people saw this, they knew that they had met a tough opponent. However, what made them feel even more depressed was that their strength was obviously above the other party's, but unfortunately, they could not beat Feng De and the others, who only had a few people. This fact was really too hurtful to their self-esteem. In reality, what they did not know was that Feng De and the rest had acted as fast as lightning and eliminated them in such a short time. The main reason was that they were afraid that Leng Ruoxue would interfere. Once their young miss made her move, they would have nothing to do with it. These people were definitely an instant kill for Miss. After the transition from a few hundred people to a few dozen people, those people who had come with a menacing momentum and treated Leng Ruoxue and her group as pushovers no longer dared to attack rashly. They looked at each other without making a sound and actually did the same thing escape. However, Feng De and the others did not even bother to chase after them when they saw them running away. They returned to the group after sneering. Seeing Feng De and the others return in high spirits, Elder Yi swallowed his saliva with some difficulty and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What a pervert! Truly abnormal, a few people against a few hundred people and actually won. If it was him, he couldn't guarantee that he could scare those people away in such a short time. However, Feng De and the others had done it, so he looked at them in a different way. No wonder the family had attached so much importance to them. As expected, they had the ability. At this time, Elder Tong could not even feel jealous. His attitude towards them was even friendlier. Elder Yi, in the future, if there's someone like this, just leave it to us to deal with them. As for those divine emperors and the like, I'll leave them to you. Feng De said with a smile. He knew himself well. He didn't feel any pressure dealing with those people just now. After all, the strength of the other party was not much higher than theirs. When their young lady gave them special training, they had the same experience. However, if the strength of the opponent was too much higher than them, they would not have absolute confidence. Yes, yes. Feng De's words made Elder Yi nod his head repeatedly. Time passed. The number of people on the screen was only maintained at a few million. However, the huge public square was still in a state of chaos. Among them, there were still many ignorant people who had targeted Leng Ruoxue and the others. However, those who had come to seek death had never returned. Slowly, the number of participants surrounding Leng Ruoxue and her group decreased. Leng Ruoxue and her group were so bored that they simply sat on the ground. Their carefree attitude angered many people. However, no one had the time to find trouble with them. The current situation was that the small families wouldn't dare to provoke them, the top families wouldn't provoke them, and as for the participants of the 8 divine regions, they wouldn't provoke them right now either. Who asked the Ning family to wear the same pants as them? Chapter 1905. Throwing the Game 1. After an unknown period of time, the number of people in the plaza finally dropped from 1 million to only a few tens of thousands. However, in Leng Ruoxue's eyes, there were still too many people. Not only that, more and more people were targeting them. This was because as the others left the plaza or died, the number of participants with lower cultivation was also decreasing. Just as Leng Ruoxue and the rest were observing the situation in the arena, a few other participants from different families had their eyes on them. It was obvious that these families were in an alliance. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly as she looked at the family clans that were slowly approaching them. She then said to Elder Chu, Elder Yi, you guys should go and find some opponents to play with. Play? When Elder Tong heard this, he was speechless. So this young lady had been treating them as a joke all this time? This was really infuriating. Most people were extremely nervous because of this competition, but this person was treating it as a game? Alright. He had to admit that the other party had the ability to play. Moreover, after living for so long, this was the first time he had seen a contestant so free and easy in a competition. Today could be considered as an eye-opener. Elder Yi, hurry up and find an opponent to fight with. With you guys here, not many families will dare to come. Hearing that their miss was driving them away, Feng De and the others quickly echoed. Hearing Feng De's disdainful tone, Elder Yi and the rest of the Ning family were speechless. Weren't they here to protect them? Great, now she was despised by him. So, was there any justice left in this world? Elder Yi and the others were extremely depressed, but they didn't dare to vent their anger on these people, so they could only vent it on the other participants. Elder Yi rushed forward like an arrow and swept the unlucky ones closest to him out of the arena with his weapon. Those unlucky ones didn't even have time to react before they were reported to be seriously injured. When the other Ning family members saw this, they also rushed into the chaotic battle like tigers and wolves, killing without any scruples. With their strong intervention, the number of people in the chaotic battle was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Many families had a headache when they saw this situation. What had happened to the Ning family? They had been biding their time before, but now it was as if they had taken stimulants, one after another. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before they were all spread out. This fact that was about to happen made many families vigilant, and they quietly stayed away from the Ning family's battle range. Before they could come up with a good plan, they should get as far away as possible. More than one family present had such a thought. When Feng De and the others saw this, they kept cheering for the Ning family. Elder Yi, good luck, you guys. Feng De and the others shouted. Oh right, you guys on the left want to run. Don't let them off. Lin Yuan reminded. Their actions had undoubtedly angered the masses. Those families who wanted to avoid the Ning family, when they heard this, suddenly all of their faces were red with anger, and their angry eyes stared as if they wanted to swallow them alive. Some people even rushed toward Feng De and the others angrily. When Feng Da and the others saw this, they were all smiling and extremely happy. As for those participants who had come with an overbearing and angry attitude, they had never expected that they would not be able to return. By the time they realized this fact, it was already too late. Feng Da and the others would never let go of those who took the initiative to provoke them. Not only that, but Feng Da and the others also continued to uphold the principle of speed, ruthlessness, and accuracy when they attacked. Almost all of their attacks were fatal, which was equivalent to giving a warning to those who wanted to challenge them. When those people saw Feng Da and the others, who were full of killing intent, they were completely dumbfounded. Were these guys still human? He looked so weak, but his combat power was so shocking. In an instant, everyone felt that they had been deceived. Some even thought of running away. However, since they were already here, how could Feng Da and the others let them go back? Without giving them too much time to think, Feng Da and the others attacked one after another. In an instant, countless blades flashed with dazzling sparks, causing ripples. In addition to the light of teleportation, the scene became even brighter. Inside the dream dust space, the battle was in full swing. At the same time, outside the arena, it was not calm either. After the second shock, the huge light curtain outside the arena disappeared. As a result, the representatives of the families outside the arena couldn't see the situation inside the special space through the light curtain. This fact had made many families panic. After all, many families had sent their elite members to participate in the competition. If something happened to them, it would be a huge loss for any family. Not only that, they wouldn't even know how their family members died. This was something they couldn't tolerate. As a result, after the light screen disappeared, many families went to look for the person in charge of the competition in the Divine Lord's estate. Although many families feared the authority of the Divine Lord's estate, they could not care so much now that the fate of their clansmen was unknown. Therefore, all the families had a tacit understanding to protect their common interests. Their interference had given the person in charge of the God Lord's estate's elite assembly a headache. The Divine Master's estate had specially sent a reverend god to host the elite competition this time. This showed how much the Divine Master's estate valued the elite competition. The reverend god had fought for this opportunity with great difficulty from many competitors. However, he had never dreamed that he had not gained any benefits. This time's elite gathering was full of problems, causing him to be badly battered. This time, his opponent would have a good show to watch. As the saying went, where there were people, there would be competition. The competition in the Divine Lord's estate was even more intense. Although he was a reverend god and had a high status in the divine world, his strength was not the highest among the reverend gods in the Divine Lord's estate. The one who was on par with him was his biggest competitor. Basically, the two of them would not give in to each other if they could compete. In the guest room of the Divine Master's estate, the hierarch was frowning as he sat on the main seat. In front of him were the representatives from the various families who had come to inquire about the situation. Although the representatives looked very polite and respectful on the surface, he was not happy deep down. This was because the representatives of the various families were not prepared to leave before they received a positive answer from him. Instead, they were sitting face to face with him. He still had to entertain them with good food and drink. No matter how he thought about it, he felt depressed. Sir Xia Yi, I wonder when you can give us an answer? We're very worried about our clansmen. After waiting for a long time and not getting any reply, someone finally couldn't help but ask again. Chapter 1906, Throwing the Game, 2. I've already reported this matter to the Divine Master, and I believe there will be news soon. Everyone, please calm down. Xia Yi consoled him with a frown. In reality, he was also a little puzzled. By right, the Divine Master should know everything about the special space like the back of his hand. However, it had been so long. Why had he not sent anyone to inform him of what had happened inside? The last time the barrier was broken, the God Lord had immediately sent someone to inform him. This time, there was no news. It was unusual. Sir Xia Yi, please understand our anxiety. The clansmen in this special space are all the elites of our great clans. If they were to suffer any harm, It would be a great loss for us. Someone else said. I understand, Xia Yi replied indifferently. He didn't want to argue with them over this matter. In fact, how could there be no casualties in a competition? If the clan suffered such heavy losses just because of a competition, then wasn't the clan a little too weak? He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Then, I wonder when Sir Xia Yi will be able to give us an answer? The man pressed on with an anxious expression. I'll inform you immediately once the Divine Master sends someone to inform me. Of course, if you really can't wait, you can go and see the Divine Master. I believe that the God Lord will give you an answer. Xia Yi reminded him in a calm and composed manner. When that person heard Xia Yi's words, he immediately wilted. How could he dare to directly ask the Divine Master? Wasn't that courting death? Why do you ask the Divine Master? You're in charge of this matter. At this moment, a disapproving voice came from outside. Then, a tall middle-aged man strode into the reception room. The representatives of the various families in the reception room immediately stood up from their seats as soon as they saw the man and saluted him. Greetings, Your Excellency Huang Wei. This person was also a reverend god, and he was Xia Yi's sworn enemy. Please don't stand on ceremony, everyone. Huang Wei said with an amiable smile. He did not put on the airs of a divine reverend. This made everyone feel very comfortable and their impression of him became even better. What are you doing here? As soon as Xia Yi saw this fellow, his tone immediately turned sharp. When everyone present saw this, they immediately understood what was going on. From the looks of it, the rumors that they were at odds with each other should be true. I'm here to help you, of course. Huang Wei said with a faint smile. Then, he sat down in the empty seat beside Xia Yi. You're that kind? Xia Yi asked with a face of disbelief. This fellow was more like a spectator. Why would he help him? Wouldn't it be raining red then? I've always been kind. Huang Wei glanced at Xia Yi and said impolitely. You're kind? Upon hearing this, Xia Yi snorted disdainfully. If this fellow was kind, he wouldn't be able to find an evil person. When I heard that there was an accident in the competition, I immediately came to help you. How can I not be kind? Huang Wei retorted. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. The grand meeting of the elites this time was really lively. Every now and then, something would happen. Just by watching it, he was already so happy that his stomach hurt. As for Xia Yi, he must be feeling depressed from his constipated expression. Now, he was glad that he wasn't in charge of this matter. Otherwise, wouldn't he be the one feeling depressed now? You're kind, my ass. Xia Yi could not help but curse in his heart. His expression became uglier and uglier. After glaring at Huang Wei, he simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep without saying a word. Seeing him like this, none of the representatives present dared to disturb him. After all, he was a divine reverend. When Huang Wei saw Xia Yi's reaction, he knew that he was quite angry. He smiled indifferently and then started to chat about daily life with the people present to show his closeness. Although everyone present was somewhat absent-minded at this moment, they didn't dare to not give face to a reverent god's goodwill. After a long time, the Divine Master finally sent a guard over. The guard sent by the Master God received many expectant looks as soon as he entered the guest room. He didn't waste any time and told everyone the Master God's reply. The Divine Master said that this is the normal procedure of the competition. Those people are currently in the middle of the competition, and he asked you not to worry. The guard said. Then why did the light screen disappear? Someone couldn't help but ask. If the light screen was still there, they wouldn't have to worry about this. That's to make the game go better. I hope you can understand. The God Lord also doesn't wish for any estrangement to occur between your clans because of this competition, so the competition has been temporarily changed to a closed-off state. I seek everyone's understanding. The guard said apologetically. I see. Everyone nodded. Since the Divine Master had said so, they naturally could not continue to be entangled in this matter. After reaching this conclusion, everyone stood up and took their leave. At this moment, the master of the Ning family and the others in the arena had naturally learned of this news. Brother Long, how true do you think the Divine Master's reply is? The master of the Ning family frowned and asked with uncertainty. No matter how many lies his answer is, we can't be sure that it's not. Since that's the case, why should you be bothered by this? Just wait patiently. Uncle Long glanced at the master of the Ning family and said indifferently. Then he closed his eyes again. Seeing him like this, the master of the Ning family completely lost his temper. Uncle Long's expression would never change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. It seemed like he still had a lot of training to do. The great elder swallowed his questions after hearing Uncle Long's words. He peeked at Uncle Long with a hint of resentment, then closed his eyes. At the same time, in a towering palace within the Divine Master's estate, a red-robed woman sat on the throne with a dark expression. Her face was like a storm, and her subordinates were all pale-faced and trembling. "My lord, please forgive me. We can't contact dreams." One of the subordinates trembled and said nervously, "You can't contact him? Then what do I raise you for? You guys are really useless." The woman, who was addressed as the master, roared in anger. Her originally beautiful face had become somewhat distorted, and her eyes were spitting flames of anger. That damn dream dust. He actually dared to go against her. She would not let that guy off. The woman was filled with hatred. When the subordinates kneeling in front of her heard the woman's words, they felt aggrieved. They also wanted to contact that damned dream dust. However, that guy didn't even care about them. What could they do? Even his lord couldn't do anything to him, so how could Huan Chen listen to them? Chapter 1907, Throwing the Game, 3. Continue to contact Huan Chen. Tell him that if he doesn't appear, I'll destroy him. He ordered. The woman saw that her subordinate was silent, so she continued to order with a cold face. "Yes. Yes," the subordinate replied. Then he stood up and left the main hall. Just as they left, a figure appeared in front of the woman. Seeing that detestable figure, the woman's anger grew even more intense. "What, you're finally willing to come out?" The woman's face was cold as she said in an unpleasant tone. "Do I dare not to come out? If I don't come out, you're going to destroy me." The owner of the figure said indifferently. The person who spoke was dressed in white, floating like a fairy. There was a faint smile on his extremely handsome face, but that smile did not reach his eyes. Instead, his originally clear and bright eyes were filled with coldness. "I only did that to force you out. Do you think I would bear to destroy you?" The woman smiled faintly and said in a flirtatious manner, "I'm willing." Huan Chen said coldly. He knew that if he could not be used by her, she would destroy him without any hesitation. Although the price of destroying him was a little high for her, it was better than losing control of herself. "If that day really comes, you're the one who forced me. Actually, how could I bear to destroy you?" The woman said innocently. Her alluring eyes continued to shoot electricity at Huan Chen, but Huan Chen remained unmoved. "Is it true that as long as you don't like them and they're not used by you, they're all forcing you?" Huan Chen coldly laughed when he heard the woman's words. "Of course." The woman said matter-of-factly. "Ha, you're still as overbearing as ever." Huan Chen understood. "It's good you know. Let me ask you, weren't you in a deep sleep? Why did you suddenly wake up?" The woman pressed, her face filled with displeasure. "I've slept enough, so I'll naturally wake up." Huan Chen's tone was indifferent, but it was enough to anger people to death. In fact, the reason why he had woken up was all because of this woman. If it wasn't for her, how could he have woken up at this time? However, he would not tell this to the woman in front of him. "Oh really? Huan Chen, don't blame me for not warning you. You'd better not play any tricks, or I'll destroy you at all costs." Although the woman didn't fully believe Huan Chen's words, she still glared at him with a pair of flaming eyes. "Do I dare to play any tricks in front of you?" Huan Chen asked. "Since you don't dare, then be more honest." The woman continued. "I've always been honest, you should know that." Huan Chen said with a faint smile. After saying that, he immediately disappeared. The woman glared in the direction Huan Chen had disappeared in and gritted her teeth in hatred. Why couldn't that damned guy be used by her? She really hated this weapon spirit with an independent personality. Huan Chen was none other than the owner of that special space, the legendary weapon spirit. The special space that hosted the elite competition was a spatial god tool created by the previous Divine Lord. The god tool had been created by the previous Divine Lord unintentionally, but due to some accidents during the process of creation, not only had the god tool's quality increased by several levels, but it had also given birth to Dream Dust, a tool spirit with an independent personality. And it was an uncontrollable, disobedient artifact spirit. Of course, it was mainly because he didn't listen to her. Huan Chen's disobedience was also reflected in his unwillingness to recognize her as his master. As the previous Divine Master sister, she had naturally become the new master of the Divine Realm after his death. Logically speaking, all of her brother's good things should have belonged to her after his death, but unfortunately, there were always one or two things that were different from the rest. They refused to be controlled by her or acknowledged her as their master, and Huan Chen was one of them. He was also the most difficult one to deal with. Huan Chen's space was a semi-open space. It was not only accessible to those who had acknowledged a master. Therefore, although Huan Chen currently had no master, they could still compete inside. This was also the setting of her good brother. However, although they could enter, the control of the inside still belonged to Huan Chen. As a Divine Lord, she could only use the outer part of the Huan Chen space. As for the real core, she had no way of controlling it. This was also the main reason why the subordinates she had sent into the special space couldn't find Huan Chen. As long as Huan Chen didn't want to see him, no one else would be able to see him. The woman's head ached at the thought of Huan Chen. Many years ago, Huan Chen had chosen to let her fall into a deep sleep in order to resist her authority. She was well aware of this. After all, once Huan Chen fell asleep, she would not be able to cause trouble for him. She would not be able to force him to recognize her as his master. Now that Huan Chen had suddenly woken up and caused such a huge commotion, she did not believe that it was just because he had woken up. However, no matter what his purpose was or what plans he had, it was best not to touch her bottom line. Otherwise, no matter how reluctant she was, no matter how great the price, she would destroy the illusion dust. After the woman made up her mind, her beautiful eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Then, she also teleported away from the main hall. Within the Dream Dust space, the number of remaining participants was getting smaller and smaller. The number of people was still decreasing at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. Of course, the reason why they could leave so quickly was largely due to Leng Ruoxue and the others. Seeing that the number of people in Leng Ruoxue's group was getting smaller and smaller, they let loose and prepared to fight with their opponents. However, some of the participants who had been at a disadvantage against them, upon seeing their aggressive appearance, immediately hid far away in fear. They were afraid that they would immediately find them. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest saw this, they did not bother with those cowards. Instead, they went to find their opponents. In any case, most of these people were still going to leave this place. Feng De and the others were looking for their own opponents with great pride. As a result, Leng Ruoxue was left alone. When some people saw that she was alone, they instantly locked their gazes on her and treated her as their opponent. After all, in terms of ability, Leng Ruoxue was only a god-tier master and rarely fought. Hence, many people thought that Leng Ruoxue was very weak and that they should pick the soft persimmons to pinch. Hence, Leng Ruoxue was targeted by many people in an instant. Most of these people had their eyes on her because she looked weak. Of course, a small number of them wanted to take revenge. After all, many families had been humiliated by Feng De and the others just now. If they could take care of this woman who seemed to be very important to them, they should at least be able to regain some face. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue's gender was automatically ignored by them. Looking at the dozens of people surrounding her, Leng Ruoxue's face revealed a hint of disdain. She then mocked, "So many of you ganging up on a woman, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? We're just making use of the rules. We didn't break the rules. However, if you're afraid, you can just kowtow to us and admit defeat. We'll let you live on account that you're a woman. Otherwise, don't blame us for ruthlessly destroying a flower." Someone laughed in a perverted manner. His perverted eyes were still darting around Lung Ruox's body. I won't blame you. Come at me together. Lung Ruoxue laughed nonchalantly. Then, in an instant, she made her move. A flash of red lightning struck towards the man who had just spoken. The target was naturally his face. With a bang, the man's face exploded, and blood gushed out. His perverted eyes were even more bloody from the explosion, and nothing could be seen clearly. Arg! My face. My eyes. The man, who had reacted half a beat slower, was dumbfounded by Lung Ruox's lightning-like speed. By the time he could react, he was already injured. Immediately after, a white light teleported him out. When Lung Ruoxue saw the man leave, she felt extremely regretful. Actually, she should have been more ruthless. What happened just now was just a small punishment for him. However, he did not expect that he would be teleported out. She couldn't help but feel depressed. Then, she turned her beautiful eyes to the others. Since that man had escaped, she could not let these people go. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue pointed the long sword in her hand at the people surrounding her and infused her fire attribute divine power into it. Then, with a light turn of her wrist, thousands upon thousands of meteors that were shimmering with red flames shot out. The meteor shower wasn't big, it was like a small fire spark. Although there were many of them, the people surrounding Lung Ruoxue didn't pay much attention to them and only dodged them slightly. However, when the small fire sparks touched their bodies, they could feel the excruciating pain. The moment the small fire sparks touched their bodies, they immediately burst into flames. In an instant, everyone was in a hurry to put out the fire. There were also some who couldn't bear the pain that penetrated deep into their souls and fainted. What they didn't know was that this was the result of Lung Ruoxue showing mercy. Otherwise, if Lung Ruoxue had directly used her own natal flames, these people would have been burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. Lung Ruoxue naturally didn't want this cat and mouse game to end too quickly, so she had deliberately shown mercy. Chapter 1908, 100 People Reward, 1, and the reason she went easy on him was definitely not because she was kind. Lung Ruoxue looked on coldly from the side. She didn't continue to kill the people who were trying to put out the fire in a fluster. However, after those people put out the fire, they turned their angry and hateful gazes towards her. Lung Ruoxue was surprised by this. It seemed that these people hadn't learned their lesson. That's just right. In case they're afraid and don't come to find trouble with me. I'll definitely be depressed then. That damned woman. He's really too detestable. Someone shouted. He wouldn't shed tears until he saw the coffin. Don't let this evil woman off. Someone immediately agreed. Then you two can continue to be together. Lung Ruoxue smiled. Detestable woman, well, let you know our power now. Someone boasted shamelessly. Clearly, he had already forgotten about his embarrassing state earlier and attributed it to his own carelessness. However, no matter what they were thinking in their hearts, Lung Ruoxue had thoroughly angered them. So, in order to protect their face and dignity, they knew that they must not let Lung Ruoxue off. In an instant, the situation changed. The wretched-looking men surrounding Lung Ruoxue all attacked her at the same time. Furthermore, some of them used their killer moves as soon as they attacked. It was obvious that they did not want to give Lung Ruoxue any chance to catch her breath. Although it was a pity to kill such a beauty, face was more important than women. Otherwise, how could they survive in the divine realm in the future? Lung Ruox's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at the various types of godly powers that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at her. She calmly set up a water wall in front of her. At the same time, tens of thousands of fiery red meteors were shot out from her sword and flew towards the opponents who were surrounding her. Do you think that this little flame can hurt us? Someone had forgotten his embarrassment just now and said with a mocking face. After saying that, the others also laughed. However, the next second, tragedy struck them. This was because the meteor shower this time was clearly slightly different from the previous one. In this meteor shower, Lung Ruoxue had added some of her natal flames. In Lung Ruox's words, she had played enough. These clowns were not worth her time. As for those who had weaker physiques, The moment the small sparks touched their bodies, they were immediately turned into ashes. As for the divine skills that they had used to attack Lung Ruoxue, they were also reflected back by Lung Ruoxue's wall of water and turned around to attack them. Then, terrified screams rang out one after another in the sky above the square. However, the people who were in the middle of the chaotic battle did not pay much attention to this side. Therefore, few people noticed how those people had died. After taking care of these people, Lung Ruoxue realized that she had nothing else to do. This was because many of them were currently fighting with their opponents, and no one actually had the time to deal with her. "Miss Lung, I want to challenge you." At this moment, a gentle female voice rang out from behind Lung Ruoxue. However, before she could turn her head, she saw a beam of light shooting towards her. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue quickly dodged, and the beam of light brushed past her. Looking at the woman who had sneaked an attack on her, Lung Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and said indifferently, "It's Miss G." She had thought that this woman had gone missing in an accident. Lung Ruoxue did not expect him to be here. She was a little disappointed. "Yes, I want to challenge you," Ji Min boasted shamelessly. She clearly didn't take the sneak attack to heart. "Miss Ji, don't tell me you don't know about the agreement between me and Ji Yun? Or is it that Ji Yun can't represent the Ji clan?" Lung Ruoxue glanced at Ji Min with a half-smile and said in an extremely cold tone, Of course, my brother can represent the Ji family, but the agreement between you two can be ended because there aren't many people here." Ji Min said disapprovingly. Since she dared to challenge Lung Ruoxue, she had naturally thought of an excuse. She wouldn't let anyone find any evidence against her. Otherwise, how could she be fit to be the eldest miss of the Ji family? Ji Min thought to herself, full of confidence. Not many people left? Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes looked at the crowd in the square in disbelief. There weren't many people left, at most a few thousand. Moreover, their numbers were rapidly decreasing. However, there was still a certain gap between them and not many people. If they were to fight now, it would definitely be a little far-fetched. However, since eldest Miss Ji had spoken, she naturally wouldn't let her down. "Of course. Miss Lung, do you dare to accept my challenge?" Ji Min said proudly. "What's there to be afraid of?" Lung Ruoxue laughed lightly. She didn't want to be treated like a soft persimmon. "Since Miss Lung has agreed, then let's have a battle to the death." Ji Min said fiercely. "A battle to the death?" Lung Ruoxue furrowed her brows. Was this Ji Min trying to kill her? He actually wanted to fight her to the death? "What, is Miss Lung afraid?" Ji Min provoked. "I'm not afraid. What's there to be afraid of? However, I want to make sure that Miss Ji really wants to fight to the death and not just stop at a certain point." Lung Ruoxue asked with uncertainty. "Of course, it's too boring to stop at a certain point. Which real battle isn't a life-and-death battle?" Ji Min said disapprovingly. "Since Miss Ji has made up her mind, I will accompany you to the end. However, it's best for us to sign a pre-war contract before the war to avoid any unnecessary trouble in the future." Lung Ruoxue suggested. "Miss Lung is really cautious. Don't worry, I won't blame you if anything happens to me." Ji Min promised. "Words are not proof. It's better to sign a contract. After all, you are Ji Yun's older sister, and Ji Yun is my friend. I don't want him to misunderstand me because of you." Lung Ruoxue had made it very clear that she wanted to sign the pre-war contract for the sake of Ji Yun. "All right then. Then let's make a contract so that I don't hurt you accidentally and Brother Yi will blame me," Ji Min said on purpose, wanting to anger Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue did not take her words to heart. Following that, the two of them made an oath according to the contract's rules and stated that the life and death contract they had signed would have nothing to do with the other party no matter what happened during the battle. The family, subordinates, and clansmen of the party who had an accident were not allowed to find trouble with the other party for any reason or excuse. Otherwise, they would be punished by the contract's rules. After the contract was formed, Lung Ruoxue specially requested for it to be materialized so that the two of them could each hold a copy. After that, the battle between the two of them officially began. Ji Min made the first move, while Lung Ruoxue set up a thin water wall in front of her. Then she watched the battle as a bystander. Of course, she was the other party in the battle, but it was obvious that she was very calm. Chapter 1909, 100 People Reward, 2. When Ji Min saw how Lung Ruoxue was acting, her lungs were about to explode. Damn it, was she looking down on her? This was because Lung Ruoxue was only defending and did not attack at all. This fact had severely hurt her pride. This was really too much of a blow. He was also looking down on her performance. Lung Ruoxue, why aren't you doing anything? Ji Min roared. Her beautiful face was so angry that it was somewhat deformed. Out, Lung Ruoxue pointed at the water wall in front of her. You're just defending. Ji Min reminded. Isn't defending considered attacking? Lung Ruoxue was astonished as she asked without blinking her eyes. Ji Min was furious. Although she really wanted to say that defense didn't count, she couldn't bring herself to say it. Furthermore, she also felt that Lung Ruoxue was intentionally going against her. She did not believe that Lung Ruoxue would not understand what she meant. However, in the blink of an eye, she was no longer entangled in this. That was because the light arrow that she had released had actually rebounded after colliding with Lung Ruoxue's water wall. It then pounced in front of Lung Ruoxue at an extremely fast speed. At that moment, she was quick-witted and quickly dodged. However, the light arrow had still pierced through her shoulder. In an instant, fresh blood spurted out from the hole in her shoulder. Ah! Ji Min cried out in pain. She quickly took out a healing pill and ate it. Although the bleeding stopped immediately, her shoulders still ached. Ji Min, whose pain had been slightly relieved, glared at Lung Ruoxue. However, she was still at a loss for words. She realized that she actually didn't know what to say. Because she was injured by her own light arrow, even though she wanted to blame Lung Ruoxue, she couldn't find a suitable excuse. This made her even more depressed. Just like that, the two of them stared at each other. Ji Min didn't speak and Lung Ruoxue didn't speak either. Ji Min didn't attack and Lung Ruoxue just looked at her indifferently. She didn't attack either. After a long time, Ji Min was going crazy. This person is really too detestable. Ji Min was so angry that she wanted to scratch the wall. Who did this? She was already injured, yet Lung Ruoxue did not take the chance to attack. Since Lung Ruoxue did not attack, she naturally did not dare to attack either. The main reason was that she was a little afraid of Lung Ruoxue's wall of water. Even though she was not too sure if the wall of water's reflection was intentional or not, but with the wall of water's ability to reflect damage, she had no choice but to be careful. The best way was to let Lung Ruoxue make the first move. However, Lung Ruoxue was obviously calmer than her. Seeing that Ji Min only glared at her fiercely, Lung Ruoxue was neither angry nor annoyed. Instead, she took out a reclining chair, a small table, and a few plates of fruit from her bracelet. She placed them in front of her and laid down on the chair leisurely. As she ate the fruit, she looked at Ji Min indifferently. Seeing this, the anger in Ji Min's heart rose uncontrollably. This damned woman, she clearly wanted to anger her to death. He was really too hateful. She had fought countless opponents in her life, but she had never seen such a detestable opponent. Who would lie down and eat while fighting? Wasn't he deliberately trying to anger others to death? Ji Min's anger rose, and her beautiful face was like a color palette, constantly changing colors. However, Lung Ruoxue remained the same. Lung Ruoxue, we're in the middle of a competition. Ji Min suppressed her anger and tried to calm herself down. I know. I'm just waiting for you to make your move. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. I was the one who attacked first just now it's your turn. Ji Min warned. Her vicious, beautiful eyes glared at the water wall in front of Lung Ruoxue. With that thing around, she didn't dare to act rashly. Miss Ji, didn't you see that my water wall has always been there? Lung Ruoxue laughed, implying that it was Ji Min's turn to attack. However, Ji Min had learned her lesson last time and didn't dare to make a move. Therefore, the two of them continued to be in a stalemate. After a long while, Ji-min took a deep breath and continued, Lung Ruoxue, there's no point in us continuing this stalemate. Why don't we add some stakes to our battle? A wager? What do you want to add? Lung Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. If I win, you must leave Brother Yi. And you're never allowed to appear in front of him ever again, Ji-min said with an evil smile. Even though that was what she really thought in her heart, the main reason she said that was to infuriate Lung Ruoxue. What if you lose? Lung Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and asked calmly. If I lose, I naturally want to appear in front of Brother Yi again and I won't disturb you. Ji-min said somewhat self-righteously. Do you think this is fair to us? Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly after hearing Ji-min's words. What's wrong? Do you have an opinion? Ji-min pretended to be puzzled, but she couldn't help but cheer in her heart. Be angry. You're nothing to us. It doesn't matter if you appear before us or not. Don't you understand? Do you think he'll agree to use this as a wager? Or is it that in your heart, I'm really that stupid? Lung Ruoxue could not help but laugh. She really did not know what Ji-min was thinking. She had never heard of such a prize before. Ji-min was furious. Even though Lung Ruoxue's words were the truth, it had greatly hurt her self-esteem. What surprised her even more was that she didn't expect Lung Ruoxue to say it out so directly. She was clearly not giving her any face. However, she did not think about why Lung Ruoxue would give her face. Since she had already said so, if Lung Ruoxue agreed, what would Lung Ruoxue be? I won't agree to such a prize. If you want me to do as you say, then take out a prize of equal value. Otherwise, there's no room for discussion. Lung Ruoxue said emotionlessly. A prize of equal value. Where was she supposed to find it? Ji-min was extremely depressed. Moreover, even if she could find it, this woman would probably not be satisfied. After all, if it was her, she would not be willing to leave her fiancé if someone wanted her to. As the saying goes, don't give what you don't want to others. However, Ji-min wanted to make things difficult for him. Since you don't agree with my suggestion, let's change it. Ji-min's eyes rolled and she smiled. Oh, tell me about it. Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. If you lose, I won't ask you to leave Brother Yi, but you have to allow me to stay with Brother Yi. How about it? Ji-min requested. Are you so sure that I will lose and you will win? Lung Ruoxue laughed. Right now, she really wanted to pry open Ji-min's brain to see what was inside. How did she come up with such a weird idea? Chapter 1910, 100% Reward, 3, Of course. Ji-min was very confident in this. She knew her own talent. Miss Ji, it's good to be confident, but overconfidence makes you a little arrogant. I'm sorry, but I can't agree to your proposal. Glancing at Ji-min, Lung Ruoxue stated her decision calmly. What, are you scared? Ji-min provoked. I'm not afraid. I just won't use my man as a bet. Besides, even if I really agree to your request and you win, you can't stay by his side, because he will kill you without hesitation. Lung Ruoxue said. This is impossible. Ji-min didn't believe it. Miss Ji, that's all I have to say. Believe it or not. However, what I want to tell you is that when you look at a man, don't just stare at his face. There are some men that you can't provoke. Lung Ruoxue reminded him softly. After she finished speaking, she did not say anything else. You're afraid, aren't you? I'm afraid it'll take Brother Yi away. Ji-min refused to admit defeat and said. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue did not even look at her. Instead, she took the treasure out of the bracelet and hugged it in her arms. Lung Ruoxue, we're in the middle of a competition. When Ji-min saw Lung Ruoxue take out another small fox, she was even angrier. Damn it, he didn't even take a look at what time it was, and still had the mood to tease his pet. What's wrong with the competition? Hasn't my adorable master been waiting for you to make a move? Ugly woman. Hurry up and don't waste my lovely master's precious time. Before Lung Ruoxue could speak, the baby spoke first. However, the moment it opened its mouth, Ji-min was infuriated. Ugly woman? Was he talking about her? Ji-min was so angry that her whole body was trembling. He actually dared to call her ugly? Which part of her was ugly? She was also a famous beauty in the immortal realm, but now she was being called ugly by a little fox. How could she accept this? Ji-min, who was filled with anger and hatred, was obviously muddled by the words, ugly woman. Without thinking, she directly released dozens of light arrows to attack the treasure. As for the treasure, it only widened its curious silver eyes and stared unblinkingly at the dozens of dazzling light arrows. Then, the treasure watched as the light arrows hit the water wall in front of it and bounced back. Then the treasure smiled. Looking at the counterattack of more than 10 light arrows, Ji-min was momentarily stunned, but fortunately, she quickly reacted and completely sobered up. Damn it! She had actually been angered by this detestable fox. One had to know that the light arrow she had just released was not the least bit watered. What she wanted was to kill that damn fox. Now that the light arrow had changed direction and was coming towards her, what should she do? Looking at the dozen or so light arrows in close proximity, Ji-min trembled a little. When the light arrows were right in front of her, she suddenly realized that she should dodge. However, it was too late to hide now. Following that, a puff sound was heard. Dozens of light arrows simultaneously pierced through her body, leaving dozens of bloody holes. In the blink of an eye, blood stained her clothes and she fell to the ground, but her angry, beautiful eyes were still full of unwillingness. She never thought that she would be injured by her own light arrow technique. This fact struck her hard. Then she felt a breath stuck in her chest and fainted from anger. Looking at the unconscious Ji-min, Baby's eyes widened and he said with a puzzled face, "Cute master, she is dead?" "No, I didn't. He just fainted," Lung Ruoxue said with a tinge of regret. She really hoped that this scourge would die immediately. Unfortunately, he was still alive. AI. How could this be? Baby sighed softly, his tone full of regret. "Cute master, should we help her?" Baby made a cracking gesture and said in a low voice, "Forget it. She is Ji Yun's older sister, after all." Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. She didn't even have Ji Min with her. Furthermore, this woman was injured quite badly. She probably wouldn't be able to cause any more trouble for the time being. Since that was the case, why should she be the evil person? "Master is so kind," Baby said with a face full of admiration. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines. She was kind? Why didn't she think so? To Lung Ruoxue, Ji Min's matter was just an insignificant interlude. After Ji Min was sent out by the white light, she turned her attention to the others. There were only 100 people left in the dream dust space, but there was still a gap between them and the 100 people required by the mechanical voice. Therefore, the battle continued, but the strength of those who remained was obviously not just a little higher. Basically, among the remaining people, with the exception of a few god-tier masters, most of them had the cultivation base of a divine lord or above. As such, the god-tier masters naturally became the targets of these people. However, the god-tier masters who were able to stay here weren't pushovers. Once a god-tier master was attacked, his or her family members would swarm over. Therefore, those who thought that they could get away with it didn't gain any advantage. In fact, they were even eliminated. As time slowly passed, the number of people in the dream dust space was finally controlled to 100. After seeing the numbers on the screen, everyone stopped fighting in unison. Among those who remained, other than Lung Ruoxue and the others, the 7 god domains and the various top clans only took up a portion of the spots. Little sister Ruoxue, all of you are the most complete. Congratulations. Yuchen walked to Lung Ruoxue's side and said with a faint smile. He was truly happy for Lung Ruoxue. If he could, he also did not wish for his opponent to be Lung Ruoxue. Brother, your Yu family is also not bad. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the people behind Yushu. The Yu family had actually left 8 people behind. This was quite a high percentage among 100 people. Yuchen smiled, but he wasn't too complacent. It was obvious that he had already received many unfriendly gazes, so he wanted to keep a low profile. At this moment, the mechanical voice finally sounded again. "Ha! Everyone, congratulations on being able to stay." There was no emotion in the tone of the mechanical voice. "How are we going to compete next?" Someone asked impatiently. You don't have to compete anymore." The mechanical voice said. "What?" Upon hearing this, the 100 people present were all stunned. What did this mean? How can we determine the winner if we don't compete? Originally, I was hoping that you could determine the winner and give the final winner a special prize, but I've changed my mind. It's already very rare for you to stand out from so many people, so I've decided to give each of you a special award. You'll all be the final winners." The mechanical voice said with a slightly excited smile. When the crowd heard this, they didn't know if they should be happy or worried. Moreover, they had never heard of a competition where 100 people won. Could this be a team competition? Moreover, in this case, it was hard to determine which family would be the biggest winner in this elite gathering. Thinking of this, many participants from families were in a dilemma. They came to the elite competition to win honor for their families. However, if the supreme honor was obtained by so many families, then the honor was too exaggerated, right? There could only be one champion, so they were not willing to share it with anyone. Many people couldn't help but think. Although this was what many people were thinking, none of them dared to stand out. Otherwise, if the mechanical voice got angry and killed them, who would they cry to? With this thought in mind, everyone fell silent. "What's wrong? Are you guys unhappy?" The mechanical voice was a little annoyed when it saw that everyone's reaction was not very strong. Everyone looked at each other, but no one spoke. "Little girl, tell me, are you guys unhappy?" Upon seeing this, the mechanical voice called out a name. The little girl he was referring to was obviously Lung Ruoxue. Seeing the mechanical voice call out the name, Lung Ruoxue smiled helplessly before saying, "I'm not unhappy about anything, but I think the others will definitely be unhappy. They've come for the honor of their families, and they want to win the final victory and achieve success and fame, but you're clearly letting everyone eat a big pot of rice and get a share of the reward. No one will cherish it." After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the mechanical voice fell into deep thought. Then he said, "The special reward that I'm giving you has nothing to do with the final champion of the elite competition. This is because the reward is given to you by me, not by the Divine Master's estate. After you take my ultimate prize, you naturally have a chance to determine the winner and receive another big prize from the Divine Master's estate. In other words, the champion would have 2 rewards. It's just that you don't need to compete for my reward." The mechanical voice changed its tone, and everyone's faces immediately showed joy. "Then, when can we start fighting again?" Someone asked anxiously. 2 grand prizes. Who didn't want to get it? Don't worry. According to the previous rules, the final victor would only be determined after leaving the special space. So, you'll have to leave this place for the rest of the competition. The mechanical voice said. When the people present heard his words, many of them revealed anxious expressions. However, Lung Ruoxue was somewhat speechless towards this fickle fellow. Previously, this fellow had said that the competition this time would be different from the past and would be held here. Why did he change his mind now? Chapter 1911, Master Recognition, 1. Even though Lung Ruoxue had no idea why the mechanical voice had changed its mind, she could sense that it bore no ill will towards them. It was just that the behavior of the mechanical voice before and after was too abnormal and contradictory. Lung Ruoxue was very suspicious, but she knew that she probably wouldn't be able to find out anything now. At this time, the mechanical voice spoke again. "Now you can receive your reward." With that, countless lights flickered in the space. Then, an item appeared in the hands of each of the 100 participants. There were all sorts of items, such as rings, armors, and so on. The crowd looked at the items in their hands and were slightly surprised. Immediately after, they were ecstatic because these items were all divine artifacts. Although most of them were only high-grade divine artifacts, the divine artifacts in their hands could grow. This was not something that could be bought with money. For many families, having a divine artifact that could grow could be regarded as a family heirloom. Therefore, after knowing this fact, There was nothing else but ecstasy in their hearts. Many people were so excited that they could not even speak. Even the participants from the superpowers of the divine realm, such as the 7 great divine regions, were indescribable with joy after seeing this growth-type divine weapon. Lung Ruoxue received a transparent bracelet that looked like a crystal. The sparkling and translucent light purple flower-shaped bracelet on her wrist made her skin look even more sparkling and translucent like jade. It was so flawless that it made people gasp in admiration. After the blood contract, Lung Ruoxue sent her divine perception into the bracelet and realized that it seemed to be a spatial-type equipment. The space inside was extremely large and could be described as boundless. The surroundings were filled with a white glow. Other than a thick fog, it was basically impossible to see what was inside. However, this bracelet was not really important to her. After all, she already had the universal bracelet. However, who knew that just as this thought surfaced in her mind, she would feel a voice of dissatisfaction coming from within her heart. Lung Ruoxue was shocked. Could it be that this bracelet had already developed its own consciousness? AI. Master is despising me. Just as Lung Ruoxue's thoughts settled, an unfamiliar man's voice sounded in her heart. Who is it? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask. She wasn't too sure if it was the bracelet that had spoken. Didn't Master already guess it? In the spirit of your bracelet. The man sighed helplessly, as if he had been wronged. However, hidden in the thick fog, his face revealed a hint of slyness. You, Lung Ruoxue was so shocked that she didn't know what to say. Wasn't she a little too lucky? The reward he obtained actually had a weapon spirit. It should be known that a divine weapon that could produce a weapon spirit was priceless. I know that Master doesn't like me, the man said bitterly. It's not like that. Lung Ruoxue replied hurriedly. How could she be disgusted by a divine weapon that had produced a weapon spirit? She was just too surprised. Then Master likes me. The man continued, his voice seemingly revealing a trace of joy. Ah. Cold sweat began to form on Lung Ruoxue's forehead. Wasn't this weapon spirit's thinking a little too simple? Master, let me first introduce myself. I am Huanchen. The man took the initiative to introduce Lung Ruoxue, ignoring the strange feeling in her heart. Oh, wait a minute. What did you say your name was? Lung Ruoxue had just nodded her head, but she immediately felt that something was amiss and hurriedly asked. I'm called Dream Dust. Huanchen repeated with a faint smile. Dream Dust? Why do you have the same name as this space? Could it be a coincidence? Lung Ruoxue muttered to herself. It's not a coincidence. I'm the one who controls this space. Huanchen said seriously. Ah. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Why did this fellow give her away as a reward? If she remembered correctly, this special space should belong to the Divine Master's residence, right? Then, could this be considered as snatching food from the Divine Master's residence? He wondered if the Divine Master would fly into a rage when he found out. Master, you don't have to worry. The reason I sent you here is to find a master for myself. As for the Divine Master's estate, they can't control me. Huanchen, who had read Lung Ruoxue's mind, quickly explained. You're not a divine artifact of the Divine Master's estate? Lung Ruoxue was confused. My previous master was the Divine Master. However, ever since the Master of Dream Dust fell, I no longer have a master. Huanchen suddenly said in a sad voice. My condolences. Lung Ruoxue didn't know how to console the weapon spirit. However, this weapon spirit was obviously a mature and opinionated weapon spirit. Otherwise, it wouldn't have created such a huge commotion just to find a master for itself. Also, those god tools that he had given out must be extraordinary items as well. The previous master has been dead for a long time, and I've already adapted to it. Huanchen said indifferently. Then he continued, Master, you don't know this, but the current Divine Master has always been eyeing me covetously. If she knew that I had found a master, she would definitely be angry from embarrassment. Therefore, I had no choice but to let the final 100 winners all get the reward. Of course, this was more to deceive people's eyes and ears. In this way, Master's safety would be greatly improved. I hope Master can understand. Huan Chen's tone was cautious as he was afraid that Leng Ruoxue would be angry. I understand. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. What else could she say? However, this weapon spirit seemed to be very powerful. Why did you choose me as your master? Leng Ruoxue couldn't figure it out and asked again. One must know that many of the people present were more powerful than her. However, Huan Chen didn't choose her and instead chose her. I like Master more. Huan Chen said arrogantly. You're too casual with your choice of master. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. The weapon spirit's way of thinking was indeed different from the rest. Master. Artifact spirits have always been straightforward, and if they don't like someone, they want to acknowledge them as master. However, there's naturally another reason why I chose a master, and that is that I have a deep relationship with Master. Huan Chen said with a mysterious expression. What relationship? Leng Ruoxue's curiosity was piqued when she heard this. Master, I can't tell you for now. I'll tell you everything after we leave the territory of the God Lord's mansion. It's too dangerous here. The God Lord will know everything. So I can't take the risk. Huan Chen said with a serious expression. Then, does the Divine Master know that you have acknowledged me as your master? Leng Ruoxue asked worriedly. She could not deal with the God Lord now. Furthermore, the God Lord would not let her off easily for snatching something from the God Lord's estate. Don't worry, Master. She won't know for now, but shall probably notice when I leave with you. We'll be out of the Divine Lord's estate's sphere of influence by then. She won't act rashly even if she hates us. Huan Chen analyzed. Chapter 1912, Master Recognition 2. Isn't the Divine Master the master of the Divine Realm? The entire Divine Realm is his. If he wants to deal with us, wouldn't it be as easy as turning his hand? Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask. The Master God is indeed the master of the divine world, and the entire divine world should be under his control. However, what if the Master God is not in a legitimate position? Huan Chen said with a mocking tone. You're not going to tell me that this Master God's position was stolen, are you? Leng Ruoxue asked in a reserved manner. It wasn't just stolen. It was simply taken by force. Huan Chen said in disdain, but he did not continue. Leng Ruoxue silently wiped the cold sweat off her forehead. She didn't expect there to be an inside story behind the Divine Master's position. However, she had always had a bad impression of this Divine Master, so she didn't think that Huan Chen's words were inappropriate. After all, she wasn't born and raised in the divine world, so she didn't have much respect for the Divine Master. Master, you'd better be careful when dealing with our Divine Master. Huan Chen suddenly warned. Although he did not know what kind of grudge his new master had with the Divine Master, he knew very well that the Divine Master had once sent people here to kill him. However, he had trapped them all. Otherwise, his master would not have been able to live so leisurely in the special space. Leng Ruoxue nodded and didn't say much. In reality, she knew why the Divine Master wanted her to help. Master, I suggest that you don't show off too much in this elite gathering. Otherwise, if the Divine Master has his eyes on you, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to leave this place. Huan Chen suggested. All right. Leng Ruoxue agreed. In reality, she didn't want to be in the limelight either. As the saying goes, even if the tree wants to be quiet, the wind won't stop. Anyone who was in the limelight would easily become the first bird to stand out, and that wasn't what she wanted. Master, then I'll send you out now. Huan Chen said. Following that, Leng Ruoxue saw a white light flash before her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, the 100 of them had already appeared on the competition grounds of the Divine Lord residence. When they saw them come out, the representatives of the various families and the people of the God Lord's estate finally let out a sigh of relief. Why are you the only ones who came out? Where are the others? The judge asked in surprise after seeing the 100 players. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest heard the judge's words, they were stunned. They thought to themselves, didn't those people come out? However, this thought only lasted for a moment because they soon saw piles and piles of people stacked on top of each other on the stage. However, these people were either seriously injured or unconscious. When the judge saw this and looked at Lung Ruoxue and the others who were in a good state of mind, he understood. Then, the judge waved his hand, and the guards of the Divine Master's estate ran to the arena and carried the people down. After the arena was cleaned up, the judge smiled kindly at Lung Ruoxue and the rest. You are the final 100 victors. According to the rules of our competition, you will be redivided into groups for the competition. However, for you to be able to reach this rank, your clans will definitely be proud of you. As for the next competition, it will officially begin tomorrow. You can go back and have a good rest now. After hearing the judge's words, everyone nodded and returned to their respective family seats. The preliminaries that had lasted for nearly a month were officially over. Although the competition this time was slightly different from the past and there were more accidents, it was still considered smooth overall. Therefore, the judge eagerly let them go back to rest as soon as they came out of the special space. However, the audience still gave some of them a rather enthusiastic look. Under this almost fanatical gaze, the person in question ran back to his residence as if he was running for his life. Before the next day's competition had even started, there was already news that some participants had fallen ill. After hearing this, the hearts of the people in the Divine Master's estate couldn't help but twitch. She had never heard of gods falling sick so easily. It was not just one or two of them who fell sick, but nearly a third of the people fell sick at the same time. Some of the more serious ones even fell into a coma. After the alchemists from the Alchemist Guild's headquarters went to see the sick competitors, they came to a conclusion that made the God Lord's estate extremely depressed. These people were really sick, and it was a mental illness caused by excessive fatigue and mental pressure. In addition, these illnesses could not be cured by taking 1 or 2 medicinal pills. They had to rest for a while. As for this time's elite competition, they were afraid that they would not have the chance to continue participating. After all, the elite competition could not possibly wait endlessly for these participants who did not know when they would recover from their illness. Lung Ruoxue and the others were among those who had fallen ill. With the diagnosis of the highly respected alchemists from the Alchemist Guild headquarters, Lung Ruoxue and the others stayed at their own residence with a peace of mind. The grand meeting of the elites naturally continued as scheduled. However, these people's illness was only a small interlude to the major families. When the final competition began, more people's attention was focused on the competition, and they were quickly forgotten. The competition in the Divine Master's residence was in full swing. The residence of Lung Ruoxue and the others was also bustling with noise and excitement. Those who looked sick to outsiders had gathered in the garden of Lung Ruoxue's residence. They were feasting and drinking without a care for their image. Ruoxue, quickly return my honey-roasted meat. I roasted it according to the method you mentioned. In the garden, Jiyun took out a piece of roasted meat that was still dripping with oil. With a face full of anticipation, he placed it in front of Lung Ruoxue as he tried to please her. Go away! Before Lung Ruoxue could even react, the evildoer beside her had already shooed her away with a dark expression. I didn't roast it for you, Jiyun said calmly. Although this evildoer was very fierce, he wasn't afraid of him. Furthermore, he believed that with Ruoxue around, this man would not go too far with him. No way, it's for my woman, the evildoer said in a possessive manner. The more he looked at Jiyun, the more he disliked him. This damned fellow was actually learning from them. They were sick, and this fellow was sick as well. Moreover, if he was sick, so be it. She even came over to them. It really made them angry no matter how they looked at it. I will provide Ruoxue with food in the future. So, you should get used to it as soon as possible. Ji-yun remained calm, but the demon was not. Adapt my ass? Who agreed to this? The demon squinted his eyes and said in a slightly displeased tone. Ji-yun didn't say anything. He only peeked at Lung Ruoxue with an aggrieved expression. This subtle hint of his reaction made the demon furious. Swear, did you agree to it? The demon asked Lung Ruoxue directly. Upon hearing this, Ji-yun looked at Lung Ruoxue expectantly. His limpid eyes seemed to be filled with tears. It was as if he would immediately start a storm if Lung Ruoxue denied him. Chapter 1913, Master Recognition, 3. Lung Ruoxue's head started to hurt when she saw their expressions. In the end, she hardened her heart and decided to value her lover over her friends. I didn't agree to his request. Lung Ruoxue whispered. After he finished speaking, the evildoer was pleased. On the other hand, Ji-Yun's face darkened as tears welled up in his eyes. He bit his lower lip and stared at Lung Ruoxue with a bitter expression. Then he turned around and ran away. AI. Looking at Ji-Yun's back, Lung Ruoxue sighed helplessly. Swear, don't worry about him, he's fine. The demon said. That guy was too similar to him in the past, so he didn't want such a person to appear in front of Shui all day long. However, he believed that with that guy's thick skin, he wouldn't be dismissed so easily. Sure enough, not long after the demon had this thought, everyone in the garden saw Ji-Yun rushing back. Ruoxue, I forgot to give this to you. After Ji-Yun finished speaking, he stuffed the honey-roasted meat into Lung Ruoxue's hands. Without giving her a chance to refuse, he turned around and ran away. Lung Ruoxue looked at the roasted meat in her hands, then at the demon's darkened face. She suddenly felt the roasted meat in her hands burning. What should she do? Just then, Feng De walked to her side. Lung Ruoxue stuffed the roasted meat into Feng De's hands. When the demon saw this, he immediately broke into a smile. Miss? Feng De looked at the roasted meat in his hand and felt a little embarrassed. He had already eaten a lot and really couldn't eat anymore. Eat it. Otherwise, you'll have to undergo special training for a month. Lung Ruoxue threatened. Young miss is bullying me. Feng De wanted to cry but had no tears. He could only bite the bullet and eat the unloved roast meat. After eating, he immediately ran out of the garden. For the next few days, Ji-Yun acted as if nothing had happened and reported to the school every day. The same thing happened almost every day. Ji-Yun's battle with the demon, Lung Ruoxue's emphasis on her lover over her friends, naturally, Feng De and the rest suffered. After a certain day, Feng De and the others finally couldn't take it anymore. They trapped Ji-Yun in a corner, each of them looking at him with a serious expression. What do you want? I would rather die than submit. Ji-Yun clutched his clothes tightly as he looked at Feng De and the others' murderous gazes, his face filled with fear. What are you thinking? We just want to have a good talk with you. When Feng De heard Ji-Yun's words, he angrily patted Ji-Yun's head and growled. Oh, we're just talking, why do you have to put on such a fierce look? I'm so scared. Ji-Yun was still a bit afraid. You've been eating too much roasted meat recently, so you're a little heaty. Feng De said with a smile. Then don't eat the meat I roast. Just eat more light food. Ji-Yun said in a slightly aggrieved tone. Of course, he knew that all the meat he had cooked had gone into the stomachs of these people. However, he would not be discouraged. Sooner or later, the food he made would be able to fill Ruoxue's stomach. He was very confident in this. You think we don't want to? Feng De said with a bitter face. Since you want to, then it's even easier. Ji-Yun said softly. After he finished speaking, he looked at Feng De and the others very carefully. I need your cooperation. Feng De said. You just need to roast less meat. Feng De was afraid that he didn't understand, so he added. You mean you want me to do something else? But I'm best at barbecuing meat. Ji-Yun was in a difficult position. Although he knew how to cook other dishes, he wasn't as good at it as he was at roasting meat. In that case, don't do anything, okay? Feng De discussed. Of course not. If I don't do anything, Ruoxue won't know how much I care about her. Ji-Yun shook his head without the slightest hesitation. To be honest, my young miss really doesn't need your concern. Commander Yi is a jealous person. If you care about her like this, won't we be the ones in trouble? Feng De was on the verge of tears. Why was this guy so stubborn? It was really a headache. I heard that any man who wants to stay by Ruoxue's side will have to be cut by a knife, right? Ji-Yun suddenly thought of this matter and tried to verify it. His pair of clear eyes would occasionally size up the important parts of the people in front of him, his face filled with curiosity. Ah! Feng De and the others were stunned when they heard this. Who said that? This was a rumor. However, since Ji Yun had asked, someone must have told him something. Should they deny it or admit it? For a moment, Feng De and the others were in a dilemma. If they were to deny it and Ji Yun really stuck to their young lad's side, Commander Yi would definitely go crazy and the unlucky ones would naturally be them. However, if they were to admit it and this matter spread out, wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the divine realm? What should he do? How should he answer to have the best of both worlds? Seeing that Feng De and the others didn't respond for a long time, and their faces were faintly conflicted, Ji Yun's heart kept sinking. Could this matter be true? Although he had always been skeptical about it, he could not tell whether it was true or not when he saw Feng De and the others' conflicted expressions. Just like that, everyone fell silent. After a long while, Feng De sighed and slowly said, "AI. Some things are really hard to say, so you'd better not ask too much. However, I want to remind you that you'd better not come to our place in the future. Otherwise, if the people of the God Lord's estate find out that we're pretending to be sick, well, definitely suffer." This was the excuse he came up with after thinking about it for a long time. Oh, the competition is about to end. Our illnesses should be cured by now, right? Ji Yun nodded and continued. As for Feng De's words about him coming here less often, he ignored them. No. Miss said that we have to keep pretending until all the competitions in the elite competition are over. Feng De said with a serious face. The competition of the elite competition was divided into 3 parts. The first part was the competition between the human families, followed by the competition between the special professions, and the last part was the competition between the representatives of the beast clans. However, because the competition between the beast clans was arranged later, not many beast clans had come yet. However, the competition between the human families would be over tomorrow, and before the alchemy and weapon refining competitions began, the representatives of the beast clans would probably arrive one after another. After all, the beasts were also very interested in pills and equipment. Doesn't that mean we won't have the chance to watch the pill refining and artifact refining competitions? Ji Yun could not help but ask. Feng De nodded. The alchemy and artifact refining competitions are very important. There might be amazing alchemists and artifact refiners in the competition. Wouldn't it be a pity if we don't go and watch? Ji Yun warned. What's there to pity? Feng De didn't think much of it. His young lady was an alchemist and a blacksmith. No matter how monstrous those people were, how could they be better than his young lady? He didn't believe it. All the families will pay close attention to this. Ji Yun continued. Then we'll be fine. Feng De remained unmoved. Hearing Feng De's words, Ji Yun was speechless. He didn't know how to continue, and he felt even more depressed in his heart. Why were the people around Ruoxue so difficult to deal with? Seeing that Ji Yun was somewhat depressed, Feng De patted Ji Yun's shoulder and said in a serious tone, "Child, there are many women in the world, you should get over it. My family's young miss really isn't suitable for you. So, if you don't have important matters in the future, it's best if you don't come to us. Otherwise, if one day you anger Leader Yi, he might just directly kill you." When Ji Yun heard this, his face paled and his eyes became misty. However, he did not nod in agreement, nor did he refuse. He only turned and left in loneliness. Looking at Ji Yun's desolate back, Lin Yuan asked with uncertainty, "Will he listen to our words?" It's hard to say. Feng De wasn't sure either. Ji Yun's thoughts couldn't be judged by common sense. The next day, when he saw the happy Ji Yun again, he knew that all his words had been in vain. This guy was simply a repeat offender who did things his own way. However, the competition of the human families in the elite competition had finally ended officially. Some people were happy, while others were sad. The Yao family obtained the noble crown in this year's elite competition as they wished. The Ning family was ranked second with a slight advantage. As for the empty spot in the 8 divine domains, it was taken by the Yu family, who had the best result in this competition. The Yu family had also leaped from being a top family to a superpower in the divine realm. The Yu family's outstanding performance had caused many families to be envious, jealous, and hateful, with the Sun family being the most among them. After the competition ended, the Sun family would always make sarcastic remarks, but when these words reached the ears of the Yu family, they were automatically ignored by the Yu family. As a new noble in the 8 divine regions, the Yu family chose to befriend the Ning family first. This fact also angered the Yao family. After all, they were the final winners of this elite competition. Unfortunately, they were not as dazzling as the Ning family. This also made many of the Yao family members hold a grudge in their hearts. After meeting the Ning family, they naturally didn't have a good expression. After a few days of rest in the elite assembly, the Alchemy Master and Weapon Master competition officially began. Chapter 1914, Timely Assistance 1. The start of the Alchemist and Weapon Master competition had excited many families. After all, there were many participants from their families. However, to Leng Ruoxue and the rest, this competition was not essential. On the contrary, Leng Ruoxue was more interested in watching the magical beasts competition. However, what did these people in front of her mean? In the garden, Leng Ruoxue looked helplessly at the few handsome men sitting opposite her: Lu Feng, Lu Yu, Shen Nuo, and the others. She did not know what to say. Wasn't today an important match between their 2 guilds? These few guys who held important positions in the guild actually had the leisure to come here and stare at her? Other than disbelief, Leng Ruoxue was still in disbelief. Wasn't the behavior of these few people too much of a joke? If the alchemists and artifact masters in the competition knew that their competition was so neglected, what would they think? After a long while, Leng Ruoxue finally couldn't hold it in anymore when she saw that the few of them were still not speaking. What are you guys here for? Don't tell me you're just here to look at me in the eye? Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask. We heard that you were sick, so we came here to show our concern. Lu Feng smiled faintly. He was as elegant as a noble young master, and no one could find any fault with him. However, it would be strange if Leng Ruoxue believed his words. Today's the competition for the weapon and pill refiners, right? Did you guys pick today to visit me? Leng Ruoxue raised her eyebrows. This is the only way we can escape. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave it all with those little guys pestering us all day. Lu Feng said with a smile. He was speaking the truth. By the way, is there anything good to eat? I've been hungry for a few days. Lu Feng then asked shamelessly. Although the others did not say anything, their eyes were the same. They all had the same hungry look in their eyes. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but wipe away the cold sweat on her forehead. She knew that these people were here for the food. This group of foodies. Leng Ruoxue helplessly gave Feng De a look. Feng De understood and turned to leave. Not long after, he, Lin Yuan, and the others brought over a few plates of steaming roasted meat and placed them in front of Flowing Maple and the others. Lu Feng gulped as he looked at the plates of delicious-looking roast meat. Then he started to eat without holding back. The others saw this and fought to be the first to eat. When Feng De saw how they ate, he laughed in his heart. Eat more, there's still a lot more. If they ate it for him, he could eat less. As it turned out, the roast meat had been roasted by Ji Yun. They didn't know what had gotten into that fellow's head, but he had actually made such bold statements, saying that he would roast the meat to the extreme, so that their young miss would not be able to live without it. As a result, he had been hiding in the kitchen every day, thinking of all sorts of ways to roast the meat. As a result, they had been very unlucky. They had already gotten tired of eating roast meat, but when their young miss had said, "Don't waste food," they could only bite the bullet and eat the roasted meat that they already hated. When Commander Yi saw that Ji Yun had temporarily placed all his attention on the roast meat and did not disturb Shuer, he warned them that they must finish the meat that Ji Yun had roasted and not let it fall in front of Shuer. He also warned them to think of a way to make it difficult for Ji Yun. Otherwise, they would bear the consequences. Under Yi Chen's abuse of power, Feng De and the others' days were even more difficult than before. However, it was all good now. With these gluttons, Lu Feng, he could help them digest some of the roasted meat. He was very pleased. The way they looked at Flowing Maple and the others also became gentler and more passionate. If he wasn't afraid of scaring them, he would have fed them personally, in case they couldn't finish it and had to finish it in the end. However, his worries were unnecessary. Lu Feng and the others thought that the roasted meat was specially prepared for them by Leng Ruoxue and the others, so they would naturally give them face and finish it all. However, when they finished the meat in front of them and thought that there would be other dishes, Feng De and the others actually served a few more plates of meat. When Lu Feng and the others saw this, they were dumbfounded. That Feng De, don't you have any other food to serve us? Flowing Maple could not help but ask. No more. Feng De's answer was so matter-of-fact, and Lu Feng's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard it. What the hell is this? They didn't want to just eat barbecue. Eating too much of that thing will make you heaty. Some vegetables will do too. This roast meat is a little greasy. Flowing Maple lowered his request. Right now, even if he had some lettuce leaves, he would still be quite satisfied. No, I didn't tea. Feng De said. They hadn't eaten any food for a long time. As the saying went, we share good fortune and misfortune together, so Lu Feng and the others naturally didn't want to eat it. Feng De's direct answer left Lu Feng and the rest at a loss for words. Could it be that Leng Ruoxue and the rest were so poor that they could not even eat vegetables? The vegetables in the divine realm were indeed more expensive than meat. If there are no vegetables, then there should be fruits, right? Give me some fruit. After a while, Lu Feng spoke again. He knew that Leng Ruoxue had quite a few good fruits in her hands. Also not. They've all been eaten. Feng De said without changing his expression. He did not feel guilty at all for his lies. Lu Feng was speechless. His mouth was half open, but he could not say a word. On the other hand, Leng Ruoxue was laughing in her heart when she heard the conversation between Feng De and Lu Feng. She knew that Feng De had done it on purpose, but she was happy to see it happen. After all, she knew that Feng De and the others had been wronged during this period of time. Unfortunately, she could not do anything about it. Looking at Lu Feng's reaction, Feng De also kept quiet with a wronged expression. Little girl, we're here to see you. You're not just going to treat us with roast meat, are you? After being stunned for a long time, Lu Feng spoke again. I didn't want to, but I only have roasted meat now. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. In order to avoid the barbecue, she had stayed in her room for a few days. If not for Lu Feng and the others, she would not have come out. Why don't I get you guys some grilled fish? Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. Grilled fish? Is that any different from roasting meat? Flowing Maple rolled his eyes. There is. Fish swam in the water, while meat ran on the ground. It's different. Leng Ruoxue explained with a smile. All right, they're different. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's explanation, Lu Feng and the others were completely speechless. At the same time, they understood that they would not be able to eat anything good at Leng Ruoxue's place today. So, they had decided to come again tomorrow. Thinking of this, Flowing Maple and the others exchanged a few glances before standing up and taking their leave. However, when they came to visit again the next day, the food they had was still roasted meat. Chapter 1915, Timely Assistance. 2. They didn't want to give up, so they came for a few more days. But every day, Feng De and the others treated them with barbecue, which made them gnash their teeth in hatred when they saw barbecue. After a few days, they put barbecue on their blacklist and decided not to eat barbecue again. The Alchemy Master and Weapon Masters competition was also nearing its end in a raging fire. In reality, the duration of the Alchemist and Armament Master competition was very short. From the preliminary round, the semi-final round to the final round, there was only a total of 6 days. However, for the first 5 days, Leng Ruoxue and the rest stayed at their own residence. On the final day, Leng Ruoxue brought Feng De and the rest to the audience seats. Ji Yun knew that they would be coming to watch the battle today, so he had followed the Ji clansmen to the competition grounds early on. When he saw Leng Ruoxue, he was so excited that he abandoned his clansmen and ran over to Leng Ruoxue's side. The elder leading the Ji family's team could only sigh helplessly. However, the master of the Ji family was happy to see this. Ji Yun was his favorite grandson. He was naturally happy that Ji Yun had a few good friends. Furthermore, he could tell that Leng Ruoxue and the others were not ordinary people. If Ji Yun could become friends with them before they became famous, it would be a great advantage for Ji Yun to inherit the Ji clan in the future. Unfortunately, some people in the Ji family didn't think so. Following closely behind Ji Yun, a young man was also walking towards Leng Ruoxue and the rest. When he saw Leng Ruoxue and the rest, the young man immediately scowled and reprimanded. "Young master, this woman has caused our Ji family's eldest miss to suffer a fate worse than death. How can you ask a tiger for its skin without distinguishing right from wrong? How can you face the young miss who loves you so much like this? She's your sister. You shut up." The old ancestors said that injuries are inevitable in the competition and told us not to be calculative. You actually dare to disobey the old ancestors' words? When Ji Yun heard the young man's words, he was so angry that he wanted to stuff a stinky sock into his mouth. Damn it, why is there always such a self-righteous person? Even though he had not spent much time with Leng Ruoxue, he knew very well that she would not hurt her sister for no reason. He also knew what Ji Minbao was up to. Hence, he naturally did not wish for his clansmen to misunderstand Leng Ruoxue. However, he had obviously underestimated the lofty position Ji Min held in the hearts of this group of young men in the Ji family. Ji Min was a godlike figure in their hearts, but now she was seriously injured. Therefore, these brainless fans naturally had to stand up for their idol. Don't care? Young Miss is so injured, how can we not be calculative? The young man said with a face full of grief and indignation. The current Ji Min was like a vegetable, half paralyzed on the bed. Their hearts ached when they saw her. One had to know that Ji Min used to be so high-spirited, but now she had become like this. How could they not be heartbroken? Then what do you want to do? After hearing the young man's words, Leng Ruoxue did not give Ji Yun a chance to speak and only asked indifferently. "Ruoxue, don't listen to his nonsense. Our Ji clan has already come to a conclusion on this matter, so there's no need to pay attention to him," Ji Yun hurriedly said. "You don't have to say anything. I want to hear what he has to say." Leng Ruoxue waved her hand, stopping Ji Yun from continuing. Seeing this, Ji Yun could only shut his mouth. "You hurt our family's young miss to that extent, you must pay for it with your life." The young man said fiercely. "Pay with my life? She didn't die, did she? What right do you have to make me pay for her life?" Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly and thought to herself, this guy really has the guts to say that. It looked like he really had nothing to fear. I really don't know who gave him the guts. Just because she's the young miss of the Ji family. You hurt her, so you have to be prepared to die. The young man boasted shamelessly. Is that so? Leng Ruoxue smiled and continued. If you don't know how Ji Min got injured, I can forgive your rudeness. If you know, then don't think I'll let you go. What a big tone. I don't believe you can do anything to me. The young man clearly didn't believe Leng Ruoxue's words. After all, their Ji family had a certain status in the firmament and wasn't some nameless and insignificant family. You can try. Leng Ruoxue smiled nonchalantly. Then, her beautiful eyes turned towards Ji Yun. Ji Yun, have you investigated Ji Min's injuries? It's clear. Ji Yun nodded. In front of Leng Ruoxue, he could not say anything that went against his heart. Do they know? Leng Ruoxue pointed at the young man in front of her. I know. Ji Yun nodded. If he didn't know, Ji Min's fans would have already made a fuss. If that's the case, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Leng Ruoxue said emotionlessly. She knew the truth, yet she still came to make a scene in front of her. This kind of person could not be forgiven. Otherwise, she would make others think that she was easy to bully. Following that, Leng Ruoxue gave Feng De a look. Feng De understood and immediately grabbed the young man's collar and carried him out of the competition ground like he was carrying a little chick. In an instant, the competition ground was filled with the young man's cries of surprise. What are you guys doing? Quickly release me. Otherwise, The G family will never let you off." The sound went from near to far, quickly disappearing from everyone's ears. The crowd watched the show and observed the G family's reaction. However, seeing that the G family didn't make any moves because of this small matter, many people's mood to watch a good show slowly faded. In fact, the young members of the G family still had some reactions. At least, they were quite angry, but they were all suppressed by the head of the G family. With the control of the head of the G family, even if they had any thoughts, they didn't dare to express them easily. Otherwise, the head of the G family would not let them off. This little episode did not affect Lung Ruoxu's mood to watch the competition. After they found their seats, they focused on watching the competition. As for Ji Yun, because of the accident just now, he felt embarrassed in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others. However, seeing that no one had any intention of venting their anger on him, he gradually relaxed. Today's first event was the alchemist competition. There were a total of 5 alchemists participating in the final round. 3 of them belonged to the Alchemist Guild headquarters, and the other 2 came from 2 small, unknown clans. However, after this battle, the status of those 2 small clans would also rise. Who asked their clans to produce an alchemy genius. Seeing Lung Ruoxu's focus on the competition, Lu Yu, who was sitting in front of her, turned around and asked, "Little girl Ruoxue, who do you think will be the champion of this elite gathering? Is this a test?" Lung Ruoxue retracted her gaze and asked with a faint smile. I just want to hear your opinion." Lu Yue said with a smile. "I'm more optimistic about the one called Jungle." Lung Ruoxue laughed. Chapter 1916, Timely Assistance, 3. Why? Lu Yue was a little surprised. Lin Lin was the one with the least experience in alchemy among the 5, and his aptitude wasn't top-notch. To be honest, he was a little surprised that he could advance to the finals. After all, the alchemists who dared to participate in the competition all had a certain level of strength, and there wasn't much of a difference in their strength. His talent may not be the best, but he wins in hard work. As the saying goes, hard work makes up for it. That's why he's quite skilled in pill concoction. Because he knows what he's lacking, he can see his strengths and weaknesses. This is the so-called well-prepared. Lung Ruoxue gave a simple analysis. However, alchemy was a profession that burned money. Before becoming famous, it was not easy for an ordinary alchemist to refine good pills. After all, no one would be stupid enough to hand over their precious herbs to an unknown alchemist to refine pills. The loss would be immeasurable. And from the clothes of this alchemist named Lin Lin, his alchemy career had not been smooth sailing. His days were even more tight. The resources that could be provided for him were pitifully few. Otherwise, he would not be so sloppy. The medicinal pills that he refined were so ordinary that they could not be more ordinary. If Lung Ruoxu's guess was correct, Lin Jian was definitely trying to get a high score in the first 2 rounds. This way, he would have a higher chance of competing with the other 4 alchemists. The finals between alchemists and blacksmiths were divided into 3 rounds. The first 2 rounds tested ordinary pills and equipment. It wasn't difficult to gather the materials, but the simpler something was, the more it tested a person's basic skills. Therefore, if Lin Jun wanted to get a good result in the competition, he naturally had to show his full strength. As for the last round, it was the refinement of pills of his own choice. The so-called free choice of pills, in addition to the pill that one was best at, one also had to test the grade, quality, and so on. These were all important criteria for scoring. After all, although the profession of an alchemist was respected, the personal ability and connections of an alchemist were also very important. If an alchemist could not even support himself, then he could only be regarded as a failed alchemist. However, Lung Ruoxue was very curious. What kind of pill would be refined in the last round? Looking at the bright and beautiful clothes of the other 4, and the confident smiles on their faces, it was not difficult to see that they had good resources on hand, but the jungle. Ruoxue, your taste is indeed different. Even though Forrest made it to the finals, did you know? Many people were not optimistic about him and even thought that he would stop at the top 5. It would be difficult for him to go any further. Although his foundation is not bad and his score in the first few rounds of pill refining is very high, his score in choosing his own pill is not very ideal. This also pulled down his ranking. Otherwise, with his foundation strength, he could definitely enter the top 3. Luiwe said with a look of regret. But no good herbs? Lung Ruoshu guess. To an alchemist, the quality of the medicinal ingredients would determine the grade and quality of the pill. This was especially so in such an important competition. If he could concoct a supreme grade pill that no one else could, then the champion would definitely be him. That's only one aspect. According to our guess, he probably hasn't refined any high-grade pills. After all, his family can only provide him with very few resources. They're just a small family in decline, and his aptitude isn't the best. Naturally, it's impossible for them to fully support him in alchemy. Luiwe said indifferently. In fact, there was another fact that he didn't say. Lin Lin's family clan had not only sent one alchemist to participate in this competition, and the treatment of another alchemist was obviously better than his. It was obvious that he wasn't the alchemist that the family clan had nurtured with all their might. Unfortunately, the alchemist that the family had nurtured with all their might had very average results, while the unknown and ordinary-looking Lin Lin had amazed everyone with a single brilliant feat. I wonder if this is a big irony? The families in the forest must be regretting their decisions now. In fact, Luiwe had guessed correctly. The head of the Tsong family, who was where Lin En was, looked at Lin En, who was dressed shabbily on the stage, and was filled with regret. Although their family had sent Lin En to participate in the alchemist competition, they had not thought highly of Lin En at all. Naturally, they had not spent much effort to prepare any good medicinal herbs for him. After all, in their eyes, Lin En was only there to make up the numbers, and it was precisely because of this that the Tsong family had become famous. However, when he saw the strange looks from the other families, the master of the Tsong family felt his face burn. Unfortunately, it was too late to prepare the medicinal herbs for the forest. After all, time waited for no one. The master of the Tsong family sighed. He had a chance to get a better result, but he was satisfied to get 5th place. After all, the Tsong family had never achieved such a good result before. Because of the jungle, the Tsong family could finally hold their heads high. However, the jungle. He was a little conflicted when he thought about it. However, Lin Jian, who was focused on refining pills on the arena, had no time to understand the depressed mood of the Tsong family's head. The only thing he was thinking about was to try his best to complete the competition perfectly. The first 2 rounds of the alchemist competition quickly came to an end under everyone's anticipation. Lin Yun was ranked 2nd among the 5 alchemists with a 1-point difference. This result was already quite satisfying for Lin Yun and had exceeded his expectations. After all, the 3 alchemists of the Alchemist Guild headquarters were not to be underestimated. After the first 2 rounds of the competition, the 5 alchemists would be given time to rest. Therefore, the last round was scheduled for the afternoon. What followed after was the competition of the blacksmiths. The 5 participants of the blacksmiths competition were of equal strength and all of them belonged to the Blacksmiths Association, so there wasn't much suspense. Everyone's anticipation turned to the alchemists competition that would take place in the afternoon. After the first 2 rounds of the alchemist competition, Lung Ruoxue whispered a few words to Feng De. Feng De nodded and left his seat. Luiwe and the others could not help but ask curiously, "Ruoxue, what did you ask Feng De to do?" The secrets of heaven must not be divulged." Lung Ruoxue said with a mysterious look. Luiwe and the others were helpless when Lung Ruoxue kept them in suspense. Time passed in the anticipation of the crowd. In the afternoon, the last round of the blacksmiths competition was the first to take place. However, there wasn't much suspense in the blacksmiths competition, so the spectators were a little dispirited. The final winner of the blacksmiths competition was also within their expectations, so more people set their eyes on the alchemist competition that was about to take place. Because the 5 participants of the alchemist competition had similar results, no one could predict who would win the championship. However, they knew that whoever could refine a supreme grade pill that no one else could refine in the last round would win. Ruoxue, Are you still optimistic about the forest? In the audience, Luiyue asked with a smile. Of course. I believe in my own judgment, Leng Ruoxue said with a confident smile. Then, she turned her beautiful eyes to the 5 alchemists who were making their preparations on the stage in the middle of the competition ground. At this time, the 5 alchemists were already seated in their respective positions and carefully checking their pill furnaces. Then, other than Lin Lin, the other 4 took out the medicinal ingredients they had prepared earlier from their storage rings, confidently waiting for the final round to begin. The last round of the competition was extremely important to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Hence, Shen Nuo personally took on the role of the judge. When Shen Nuo saw that the other 4 had already prepared the medicinal ingredients, and among them were quite a few precious medicinal ingredients, but when he saw that there was nothing in front of the forest, his heart felt a little conflicted. In fact, he quite admired Lin Yun. This alchemist's aptitude was not very outstanding, but his understanding of alchemy and his care for medicinal herbs far exceeded other alchemists. The only pity was that their Alchemist Guild headquarters had discovered this talent too late. Otherwise, they would have accepted him into the Alchemist Guild headquarters earlier. With Lin Yun's diligence, he was bound to have a different kind of achievement. Perhaps he could have become an honorable master of alchemy by now. What a pity! Without good medicinal materials, it was naturally impossible to refine higher-grade medicinal pills, and it was difficult to make great progress in the achievement of Alchemy Master. Therefore, the Alchemy Master level of the jungle could only barely maintain the strength of an Alchemy Grandmaster. This was also because his basic skills were solid, and he could use ordinary medicinal materials to refine pills that were suitable for the level of an Alchemy Grandmaster. Otherwise, he would not even be able to reach the level of an Alchemy Grandmaster. Shen Nuo sighed softly, feeling extremely regretful in her heart. However, what made him even more conflicted was that Lin Lin was actually unwilling to become the Alchemist Guild's exclusive alchemist, just because the guild had once rejected him. Although he did not understand the course of this matter, from this, he could see that Lin Lin was an alchemist with a very strong sense of self-esteem. And for such a proud person, unless there was a true Bo Lu who appreciated him, otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to survive in this world. Immediately after, Shen Nuo's eyes widened. Not only him, but the judges and the other 4 alchemists on the stage also widened their eyes in unison, as if they had seen a ghost. What did they just see? They actually saw the jungle taking out medicinal herbs from the storage ring. In fact, this shouldn't have surprised them. Unfortunately, the medicinal herbs taken out from the jungle were better than the ones they had prepared. There were also a few more that they didn't even dare to think about. Look at that fire ginseng. Even though it's only a small piece, the spiritual energy is so dense that it's unbelievable. And the petals of the fire lotus were also as dazzling as fire, crystal clear like jade, beautiful beyond words. Chapter 1917, A Fountain of Return, 1. The 4 participants stared at the medicinal herbs taken out by the forest with envy, jealousy, and hatred on their faces. The sour bubbles in their hearts kept rolling. Among those medicinal herbs, there were several kinds that were hard to find even with thousands of gold. Not to mention that they couldn't get them, even if their families had the money, they might not be able to buy them. More importantly, even if their families had them, they wouldn't easily take them out and let them use them to participate in the competition. After all, no one could afford the failure rate of the medicinal pills. It was also not something that alchemists of their level could afford to use. To put it bluntly, he was afraid of wasting it. Was this person really the forest that his grandmother didn't love and his uncle didn't love? Seeing those supreme-grade herbs, the few of them were uncertain. After all, they had never regarded the forest as their biggest opponent before. But now, they didn't dare to take the forest lightly. After Lin Jie took out the medicinal herbs he needed, he obviously felt many strange gazes. However, he didn't care and could understand their feelings. After all, when he first saw these medicinal herbs, he probably lost his composure even more than them. He never thought that these medicinal herbs could be used for the competition. Although he also felt that this was a bit extravagant, that person was right. Medicinal materials were used to refine pills. If one was afraid of failure, what kind of alchemist was he? He even told him that alchemists were built on piles of medicinal herbs, and that an alchemist who had never used supreme-grade medicinal herbs would never become the best alchemist. After hearing these words, he was moved. At the same time, he felt that he owed her too much. It was easy to add flowers to a brocade, but not just anyone could give charcoal in the snow. The charcoal was too valuable, which made him panic. What made him even more uneasy was that the other party didn't ask him for anything, which made him even more at a loss. However, for the sake of this competition, he was willing to give it his all. No matter what the other party wanted him to do after the event, as long as it didn't go against his conscience, he would do it all. Lin Jian decided in his heart. However, if he knew that the person who gave him the medicinal herbs had no request for him, he would probably not think this way and would instead feel depressed. The people on the stage were shocked by the herbs taken out by the forest, and those in the audience who had a certain understanding of herbs were also shocked. Especially the master of the Tsong family, who felt deeply uneasy when he saw the medicinal herbs taken out by the forest. It wasn't easy for the clan to produce an alchemist with a bright future, and he was still hoping that the jungle could do more for the clan. Could it be that the forest was going to be dug away by other forces before it could benefit the family? This fact made him feel particularly uncomfortable. However, he knew very well that the power that could produce these herbs was definitely not an ordinary small power. Lin Jian didn't have much sense of belonging to the family. More importantly, the family had helped Lin Jian very little. So, he wasn't confident in convincing Lin Jian with the family's righteousness. The master of the Tsong family sighed again and again, his brows furrowed together. In the face of those families who came to congratulate him, he also forced a smile and dealt with them. In fact, he knew the pain in his heart. At this moment, Luiwei, who was sitting in front of Leng Ruoxue, also turned his head and stared deeply at Leng Ruoxue. He did not say anything, but his thoughtful gaze made Leng Ruoxue's hair stand on end. "Sir Luiwei, why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm scared." Leng Ruoxue asked carefully. "Shui, the herbs we took out from the forest were provided by you, right?" Luiwei said indifferently. His tone was absolutely certain and not a question. "N." Leng Ruoxue nodded, not denying it. "You're really generous." Luyu's tone was a little sour. In fact, he was really jealous. Every herb that this little girl took out was of the highest quality. Whether it was the fire ginseng or the snow lotus petal, they were at least 1,000 years old. Such priceless herbs had actually appeared in an alchemy competition. If the refinement was successful, it would be fine, but if it failed, wouldn't it be a waste of God's gifts? Hearing Luyu's tone, Leng Ruoxue didn't know how to continue. Could she say that this was already the most common medicinal herb she could offer? Of course not. Otherwise, it would be too infuriating. Hence, she could only remain silent. "Hand it over." After a long while, Luiwei, who was glaring at Leng Ruoxue, spoke again. She extended her hand in front of Leng Ruoxue and said without any trace of politeness, "What do you want?" Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and pretended to be confused. "Fire ginseng. I have a pill that I need." Luiwei did not hold back at all. "Oh." Leng Ruoxue acknowledged and took out a fiery red jade box from her bangle. She handed it to Luiwei, who put it away without even looking at it to avoid attracting too much attention. However, the dense fire attribute spiritual qi still made the people around them feel invigorated. However, when they wanted to search for it, the faint fire attribute spiritual qi had already disappeared. "Little girl, what other good things do you have? Shouldn't you share some with me?" Seeing the flowing flames ginseng in his hands, Flowing Maple laughed, unwilling to be left out. However, Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at him. "Little girl, you're clearly being treated differently. You can't bully people like this." Lu Feng's starry eyes were filled with tears as he spoke with a wronged expression. Unfortunately, his pitiful act was ignored by the crowd. Feng De even covered his mouth and indicated that the competition on stage had already begun. Flowing Maple immediately quieted down and shifted his gaze to the stage. After all, he still had to abide by basic professional ethics. At this moment, the entire arena was completely silent. The only sounds that could be heard were the sounds of the furnace's fire burning and the slight sounds of the medicinal ingredients melting. Everyone's eyes were all focused on the stage, and the 5 people on the stage had all their attention focused on the medicinal ingredients. They watched the medicinal ingredients slowly melt one by one, then purify and finally form pills. The movements of the 5 people were as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. An hour and a half later, other than the 4 alchemists outside the forest, all of them had completed the refining process. Only the forest was still waiting according to the refining steps in an orderly manner. The alchemist competition also had a time limit. The first 2 rounds were 1 hour each, and the third round was 2 hours. In other words, within 2 hours, no matter how high the grade of your pill was, you had to complete your refinement. Otherwise, it would be considered a failure. Such a rule was also to remind alchemists to know their own limits, and not to blindly pursue high-grade medicinal pills and ignore their own true strength. This could also be considered as tempering their will. After all, as an alchemist, being neither arrogant nor impatient was a basic quality that they had to have. There was still half an hour left until the end of the competition. Many people on and off the stage couldn't help but feel worried for Lin Lin. They knew that the higher the grade of the herb, the longer it would take to produce the pill. Therefore, they were very worried that Lin Lin wouldn't be able to complete the pill refinement in the stipulated time. If that was the case, it would be a pity. Chapter 1918. A Fountain of Return, 2. At this moment, Shen Nuo, who was on the stage, was also carefully observing Lin Jian's reaction. Seeing that he was still as calm as before, she could not help but nod her head slightly. It looked like this young man was very clear about what he was doing, and did not become anxious just because the others had completed their refinements. However, he was a little worried that Lin Jian's medicinal pill would not be successfully refined. Looking at the herbs Lin Jian had taken out, he knew clearly that Lin Jian wanted to make the fire property dual polarity pill. The dual polarity pill was a pill that could increase the divine power of fire property. It was very beneficial to cultivation and could even be taken by a divine man. However, good fire ginseng and fire lotus were hard to find. Therefore, a good dual polarity pill was hard to find. The dual polarity pill was also one of the best pills that a respected alchemist could make. If one was lucky, the dual polarity pill might even reach the level of a divine pill. This was also the main reason why the dual polarity pill was so popular. However, with his current level, he could barely be considered an alchemy grandmaster. If he could refine the dual polarity pill, then didn't that mean that he could become an alchemy grandmaster? Thinking of this, he was even more excited about whether the forest could refine a supreme-grade dual polarity pill. After all, the herbs taken out by the forest were all of the highest quality. As time slowly passed, half an hour's time slowly passed. The time for the competition was getting closer and closer, and everyone's hearts were in their throats. There's only 1 minute left in the game, the judge announced. At the same time, Lin Jian took a deep breath and opened the pill furnace with great sincerity. A refreshing fragrance instantly entered everyone's nose. Everyone on and off the stage couldn't help but take a deep breath. Instantly they felt refreshed. Looking at the fiery red elixir lying quietly in the furnace, Lin Jian's heart was filled with joy. He immediately took out the jade bottle he had prepared in advance and quickly put the fiery red dual polarity pill into the bottle. Although he had only refined 5 elixirs, he had succeeded on his first try. The joy in his heart could not be described with words. In fact, it was very risky to refine an elixir that he had never refined before in the competition. However, when he saw the medicinal herbs that the man gave him, he only thought of the dual polarity pill. If he refined the supreme-grade fire ginseng and fire lotus into other elixir, he always felt that he would be unworthy of the value of these 2 rare medicinal herbs. Therefore, he decided to take the risk. Fortunately, he did not let these 2 medicinal herbs down. After handing over the refined pills to the judge, the 5 alchemists retreated to the side and waited for the results. The judges on the judging panel took the pills refined by the 5 alchemist masters and compared them in order. In the end, they were stuck between the forest and another alchemist from the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Lin Lin and that alchemist were both alchemy grandmasters, but both of them had refined pills that were higher than their current alchemist level. Moreover, the grade and quality of the pills they refined were not much different. Therefore, it was difficult for them to make a choice when it came to judging. But what made them even more conflicted was that both of them had the strength to win the championship, but if they chose that alchemist from the Alchemist Guild headquarters, people would probably say that their Alchemist Guild headquarters was selfish. But if they chose the forest, they would feel a bit. In short, it wasn't very easy to do. For third to fifth place, they had long since agreed on the answer, and there was no suspense. However, they were stuck in the top 2. This was also a problem that rarely appeared in any alchemist competition, but now it had really appeared. The audience couldn't help but whisper to each other as they watched the judges whisper to each other, but the final results still hadn't been announced. What's going on? Are the results not out yet? Who knows? The judges seemed to be in a difficult position. The crowd was in a heated discussion. They could all see the judges' dilemma. Schwer, you've really given the judges a lot of trouble. Hearing the crowd's soft discussion, Fluxbead turned around and smiled. Really? Lung Ruoxue said with a smile that was not a smile. Everyone had their own selfish motives, and the judges on stage were no exception. In fact, from her point of view, this was not a troublesome matter. Furthermore, she did not think that this was something that was difficult to judge. The value of the pills concocted by the 2 alchemists might be the same, but in terms of usage, the forest's dual polarity pill had a wider range of uses. After all, the forest's dual polarity pill could be consumed by either a divine man or a hierarch. However, the pill concocted by the alchemist had to be at least a divine emperor to be consumed. However, as a divine emperor, how could he be interested in a sacred-level pill that was not even a divine pill? Thus, the difference in power was obvious. Lung Ruoxue deeply felt that there was no need for the judges to be so conflicted. However, it was obvious that they would not be as fair as Lung Ruoxue. After an unknown amount of time, the judges' results were finally out. In the end, Lin Lin obtained the crown of the alchemist competition with a slight advantage. Lung Ruoxue was very clear that this result was due to Shen Nuo's firm decision. Otherwise, the judges would probably continue to be at a loss. The Tsong family's head was all smiles when Lin Jian won the championship. The congratulatory words from many families made the members of the Tsong family feel proud. The moment the results of the competition were out, Lung Ruoxue brought her men back to her residence. After the alchemist and weapon refiners competition ended, only the beast races competition remained. However, according to the Divine Master's estate's arrangements, the beast races competition would begin in 3 days. On the other hand, many clans were not interested in the competition between the magical beasts. As a result, they left the Divine Lord's estate the next day as soon as the alchemists and blacksmiths competition ended. Initially, Huan Chen had hoped that Lung Ruoxue would leave with the other clans. However, Lung Ruoxue was very interested in the beast races competition and her beasts wanted to watch the competition as well. Hence, Lung Ruoxue had ignored Huan Chen's suggestion and chose to stay. However, there were not many human families who chose to stay and continue to watch the battle. For a moment, the imperial city was much quieter. Before the start of the beast races competition, Lung Ruoxue received a few more uninvited guests. One of them was the forest. As she looked at Lin Xiao, who was standing in front of her with a cautious expression and a little at a loss, Lung Ruoxue tried her best to appear friendly. She smiled and asked, "Is there something you need from me, Sir Jungle?" The forest was no longer the same as it was in the past. Moreover, after Shen Nuo's personal examination yesterday, he had become an honorable alchemist teacher. "I'm here to thank Miss Lung." Lin Lin stammered as he looked at the devastatingly beautiful Lung Ruoxue. He had never dreamed that his benefactor would be a woman, and such a young one at that. Lin Lin, who had never interacted with a woman before, was so nervous that his hands and feet were stiff and he did not know where to put them. "There's no need to thank me. I didn't give you the medicinal herbs for you to thank me. Lung Ruoxue replied nonchalantly. The medicinal herbs that were sent to the forest were merely a drop in the ocean to her. They were not even worth mentioning. Chapter 1919, A Fountain of Return, 3. Then I wonder if Miss Leng has any requirements for me? Lin Lin thought for a moment and asked hesitantly. He wasn't really insensible. Lung Ruoxue had helped him so much, and he didn't believe that she wouldn't want anything in return. However, if he asked so directly, he felt that she was being very realistic. He felt that he had let Lung Ruoxue down, which was why he was hesitant. However, he was a straightforward person and wouldn't beat around the bush. No, I didn't. Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. Ah. When Lin Lin heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he could not help but widen his eyes. Did he dare to believe this? He had given him such precious medicinal herbs, how could he not have any requests at all? Even a 3-year-old child would be suspicious of this, right? To me, giving you some medicinal herbs is as easy as lifting a finger. Just treat me as a person who appreciates talent. I also don't want a pill master talent to be buried. You have the strength to win the championship. If you're stuck on medicinal ingredients, I'll feel sorry for you. Lung Ruoxue said sincerely. When she delivered the herbs from the forest, she had never thought of asking him for anything in return. After all, she had always done things according to her mood and according to her heart's desire. If she wanted to do it, she would do it. If she didn't want to do it, no one could force her to do it. Therefore, whenever she decided to do something, she would do it willingly and naturally would not ask for anything in return. However, Lin Mu's heart was moved by Lung Ruoxue's words. He didn't know what to say. An outsider treated him like this, but his own clansman. Now that he had won the championship, his clansmen began to think of ways to flatter him, but who knew that this wasn't what he wanted? All along, he had only wanted the acknowledgement of his clan and his family. However, when he won the championship, these feelings that he had been longing for came late. Now, he realized that these were not what he wanted. It could also be said that these feelings came too late. They were so late that he no longer needed them. Because he was very clear that what he wanted was coal in the snow, not flowers on top of a brocade. If a clansman was willing to lend him a helping hand when he was at his lowest, then he would definitely treat that person as a family member. However, when he faced those clansmen now, he did not have such a feeling. He felt more like he was experiencing the fickleness of human nature. After lowering his head in deep thought for a long time, Lin Jian raised his head and looked at Lung Ruoxue with a determined expression. Miss Leng, I'm indebted to you. Although I'm not good at anything and only know how to refine pills, I have a firm heart. I'm willing to follow you from now on and be loyal to you forever. Please accept me. After he finished speaking, Lin Lin knelt down on one knee and looked at Lung Ruoxue with anticipation. After winning the championship, there were countless forces that wanted to recruit him, but he didn't accept any of them. Now that he had chosen Lung Ruoxue, it was mostly to repay her kindness. A drop of water knows kindness as a fountain to repay. That was the only thought he had at the moment. Lung Ruoxue was a little surprised when she heard Lin Jian's words. Then she smiled and said softly, I'm just a small family, I'm afraid I can't accommodate a big Buddha like you. Miss Lung, do you despise me? Lin Lin said with an aggrieved expression. He could tell that Miss Lung didn't fancy him. This made him feel very upset. I'm telling the truth. As far as I know, there are a few families in the 8 divine domains that have extended an olive branch to you. The treatment they've given you is something that I can't give you. You're also an alchemist with a great future. I don't want to bury you. Lung Ruoxue was very sincere, but there was also a hint of probing in her words. But, I'm not indebted to them. Lin Lin said stubbornly as he looked at Lung Ruoxue with a face full of hidden bitterness. He had not expected that the decision he had made with great difficulty would be rejected. The kindness of knowing someone is only temporary. You should look further. Lung Ruoxue reminded him. In other words, he should be able to see his own future development. That was the most important thing. It's very important to me. If it weren't for your timely help, I wouldn't be who I am today. Those super forces wouldn't even consider me. That's why I don't want them. Just want to follow you. It's fine even if you can't provide me with any good resources. Now that I'm a little famous, I believe that there will be many people who want to ask me to refine medicinal pills. So, you don't have to worry about this. I'll find a way for the herbs myself. Lin Song hurriedly said. At this moment, he was only thinking about how to get Leng Ruoxue to take him in. He had completely forgotten that since Leng Ruoxue could give him such good medicinal herbs, how could she be someone who lacked medicinal herbs? However, it was also his sincere words that moved Leng Ruoxue and allowed her to pass the test she gave him. Since you've said so, I'll take you in. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Thank you, miss. Lin said hurriedly. He knew that Feng De always addressed Leng Ruoxue as miss. Following that, he immediately swore a loyalty oath to show that he truly wanted to follow Leng Ruoxue and never betray her. Seeing him like this, Leng Ruoxue didn't stop him. However, by doing this, Leng Ruoxue had really treated him as one of her own. However, when the family in the jungle found out that the jungle had found a master who didn't have much power for them, their reaction was unusually intense. The few elders of the Tsong family were especially furious. They wanted to settle scores with Leng Ruoxue immediately, but the Lin family did not give them the chance to do so. They only warned them that if they dared to cause trouble for Leng Ruoxue, he would immediately announce his departure from the family. The members of the Tsong family were afraid. Although Lin Yun didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the clan, as long as he was still a member of the Tsong family, no clan would dare to look down on them. Moreover, Lin Yun was so popular now. They naturally couldn't bear to give up on this alchemist who could lay golden eggs. Thus, they could only reluctantly agree to Lin Yun's decision. In fact, they had no choice but to agree. Leng Ruoxue found out about this very quickly. However, she did not tell anyone about it. She was even more satisfied with the forest. Although that guy didn't talk much, he was a very decisive person, and he wasn't pedantic. This was what she was most satisfied with. After settling the matters in the forest, Leng Ruoxue welcomed another important figure from the Ji family, the master of the Ji family. In the living room, the master of the Ji family sat on a chair and sipped his tea. At the same time, he would lift his eyelids from time to size up Leng Ruoxue. He could not help but exclaim in admiration. Although this little girl was young, her mental fortitude was not something that ordinary people could compare to. He had been here for a while, and other than the initial greeting, he had not said anything. However, this little girl had actually held her breath and did not take the initiative to ask him why he had come. This could not help but make him look at her in a new light, but at the same time, he was a little depressed. Miss Leng, I often hear Yun'er mention you. After a long while, the master of the Ji family couldn't help but try to find a topic. Oh. Leng Ruoxue only replied with an indifferent "oh" and did not have any other reaction. This fact made the master of the Ji family even more frustrated. It's all thanks to you for taking care of Yun'er in the special space. The patriarch of the Ji family continued helplessly. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. I say, little girl, can't you just say a few more words? Finally, the master of the Ji family went crazy. I want to say more, but you're always talking nonsense. I really don't know how to respond to you except for "oh." This time, Leng Ruoxue was more talkative. However, family head Ji seemed to be even more depressed because Leng Ruoxue had actually said that everything he said was nonsense. Little girl, I'm the head of the Ji family. Can't you leave me some face? After a long while, Master Ji said to Leng Ruoxue with an aggrieved expression. He could tell that this little girl was difficult to deal with, and Yun'er could not compare to her. I'm already giving you face by letting you in. If it were someone else, I wouldn't even let him in. Leng Ruoxue spoke the truth. In reality, many families had come to visit her. However, she had used all sorts of reasons to block them at the door. Furthermore, she couldn't figure out why those families had come to see her. She didn't seem to have any outstanding points in this competition, right? Although she was inextricably linked to the Ning family, This was not enough to be a real reason for them to visit her, right? That was what Lung Ruoxue thought, but she had underestimated the determination of those families to form a relationship with the Ning family. Furthermore, she had never thought that she had any influence on the Ning family, so naturally, she could not understand the thoughts of those families. Alright, consider my face big. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words and seeing her unusually serious expression, the Ji family's head said helplessly. Then, can you directly state your purpose of visit now? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. I just came to see you. Clan Master Ji laughed awkwardly, but when he saw Lung Ruoxue's half-smile, he quickly added, I also want to ask you for a pill. Are you really just here to ask for pills? Lung Ruoxue asked indifferently. I'm mainly here for medicinal pills, this should be fine, right? The patriarch of the Ji family changed his words, but he couldn't help sighing in his heart. He was a famous figure in the immortal realm, but now he felt so much pressure in front of a little girl. What the hell is this? The more he thought about it, the more depressed he became. Chapter 1920, Search and Rescue, 1. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly when she saw the bitter expression on Patriarch Ji's face. Patriarch Ji should have been so direct, but shouldn't you go to an alchemist if you want pills? Why are you looking for me? As she said this, Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with astonishment. The patriarch of the Ji clan had a headache. Could he say that it was the people from the Alchemist Guild headquarters who sent him here? He didn't know how Lung Ruoxue had such a good relationship with the Alchemist Guild headquarters. When they heard that he needed healing pills for Ji Min, they didn't even dare to sell it to him. Even if he provided the medicinal ingredients and a huge sum of money, they wouldn't sell it to him, let alone help him refine it. This fact made him feel rather helpless. At the same time, he also realized the important position Lung Ruoxue held in the Alchemist Guild headquarters. In the firmament, one could offend anyone but an alchemist. Hence, he could only come to Lung Ruoxue personally. He just didn't know if Lung Ruoxue would be willing to give him face. He didn't have any confidence in this. What's this? Is it so hard for Patriarch Ji to say? Lung Ruoxue's beautiful face had a carefree smile on it as she replied indifferently. Yes, I am. The master of the Ji family nodded. It was indeed difficult to say this. In that case, I suggest you don't say it. Lung Ruoxue suggested with good intentions. Actually, from the moment this old man said that he wanted to ask for the pills, she already knew his intentions. However, she would not take the initiative to say this. When Master Ji heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he was a little dumbfounded. Even though he didn't dare to call the wind and summon the rain in the divinity, he at least had some face. However, he never dreamed that he would meet such a difficult girl like Lung Ruoxue one day. She knew that he had a favor to ask of her, but she still advised him not to say anything. If she didn't say anything, why would he come here? What's wrong? It's you who said it's hard to say. Since it's so hard for you to say, it's definitely something that'll put me in a difficult position. So, for the good of all of us, it's better not to say it. Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes as she replied matter-of-factly. The patriarch of the Ji family was speechless. Alright. He admitted that what Lung Ruoxue said was true. This matter would indeed put Lung Ruoxue in a difficult position. However, he had to say it. Miss Ling, I wonder if you can give Yun face and have the Alchemist Guild's alchemist sell us a healing medicinal pill? After making up his mind, the master of the Ji family made up his mind and said straightforwardly, Patriarch Ji, how could an alchemist from the Alchemist Guild headquarters listen to me? Have you found the wrong person? Lung Ruoxue looked at Patriarch Ji in confusion. I didn't find the wrong one. Without your permission, the alchemists of the Alchemist Guild headquarters won't sell me healing pills at all. Even if I provide the medicinal ingredients and pay them a high price to refine them, they won't be willing. When Patriarch Ji said this, his face was full of hidden bitterness. How is that possible? The Alchemist Guild headquarters probably wouldn't push away their business, so Patriarch Ji must have misunderstood. Lung Ruoxue still didn't quite believe the words of this old man from the Ji family. In the entire Alchemist Guild headquarters, she only knew 2 people. One was Liyue, and the other was Shen. Moreover, these 2 people didn't seem like people who would be selfish, so Old Man Jis' words were still worth suspecting. I didn't misunderstand. And Alchemist Im close to personally told me, so I can only come and beg you. The patriarch of the G family said honestly. Oh, so you're here to ask me for healing pills? Don't tell me the G family doesn't even have a single healing pill? Lung Ruoxue said with a look of disbelief. The thing that these clans in the god world didn't lack the least was healing medicinal pills. This was an essential item. After all, injuries were inevitable. Therefore, these medicinal pills were usually prepared in advance. I do, but I need a supreme-grade healing pill. The G family members said with some heartache. Supreme-grade healing pills cost a lot of money, and just thinking about it made his heart ache. Is there anyone in the G family who is seriously injured? Lung Ruoxue said in realization. It's Ji Min. The head of the Ji family said in a low voice. Ji Min. Lung Ruoxue deliberately dragged out her words. Then, she took out a contract from her bangle and passed it to Patriarch Ji. Patriarch Ji was confused, but after opening it and taking a look, his expression turned extremely ugly. That damned girl, she actually signed such a contract. Wasn't she courting death? Even though he had no idea why Ji Min had fought with Lung Ruoxue and was even so heavily injured, there was no doubt that Ji Min had been injured by his divine skill. Hence, it was not appropriate for him to cause trouble for Lung Ruoxue because of this. He even had to warn his clansmen to be more well-behaved and not to provoke Lung Ruoxue. However, when he saw this contract, he was truly enraged. The young lady of the Ji family had designs on my man and even wanted to kill me to replace him. Do you think I should be a saint and save her? I might as well tell you the truth. The reason I spared her life back then was because of Ji Yun, so I think it's better for her to be in her current state. At least she's a lot more obedient. Lung Ruoxue said with a half-smile. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, clan head Ji knew that begging Lung Ruoxue would not work. Actually, he couldn't blame her for not willing to save him. If it were him, he probably wouldn't want to save someone who had ulterior motives. After understanding this fact, clan head Ji sat for a while longer before he stood up and left. After Patriarch Ji left, Lung Ruoxue immediately went to look for Liyue, wanting to ask him what was going on. However, Liyue's answer made her feel even more speechless. This matter? It's Lu Feng's doing. Liyue said with a faint smile in the room. But how did his hand reach into the Alchemist Guild headquarters? Don't you have anyone to do something about it? Lung Ruoxue was sweating. This Lu Feng was the vice guild master of the Armament Guild headquarters, but he actually took charge of the Alchemist Guild headquarters matters. Wasn't this a little like a dog taking a mouse? What's there to care about? He just wants to get back at you. Moreover, we've also acquiesced to it. Liyue said with a smirk. No wonder. Lung Ruoxue sighed softly. Little girl, old man Ji is looking for you? Liyue said. Yes, but I rejected him. Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Good rejection, that Ji Min must be taught a lesson. To dare to bully our family's girl, you must be tired of living. Liyue's face was cold, and she was very displeased. Our girl? She was his. Lung Ruoxue secretly complained to herself. However, she felt warm in her heart when she heard Liyue's words because she knew very well that Liyue and Lu Feng wanted to back her up. The feeling of being hugged by someone's thigh was really good. Girl, when do you plan to leave this place? Liyue asked again. I want to watch the beast races competition. I'll leave after that. Lung Ruoxue said. Oh, at that time, we will go with you and take a look at your territory and recognize the door. Liyue said with a smile. Little girl, don't tell me you don't welcome us? Liyue asked on purpose when she saw Lung Ruoxue's shocked expression. Chapter 1921, Search and Rescue, 2. How can that be? But who are you guys? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. Me, Lu Feng, Shen Nuo, First Elder, we will all return with you. Liyue explained. Oh, However, my place has only just started construction. When we left for the Imperial City, the construction was not completed yet, so Lung Ruoxue was a little hesitant. She was not sure what her place looked like now. It was unlikely that she would be able to meet anyone. It's okay, we won't mind. You have a portable house anyway, so we don't have to worry about not having a place to live. Liyue said disapprovingly. In that case, let's go together. Lung Ruoxue felt a little helpless. Since they had already put it this way, she naturally couldn't reject them. Actually, she really didn't have the intention of inviting them over as guests. After all, her territory was still in its initial stages of construction. However, these people weren't considered outsiders. Since they wanted to go now, she definitely wouldn't reject them. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had agreed, Liyue's handsome face broke into a smile. He knew that this little girl would not reject them. After chatting with Liyue for a while more, Lung Ruoxue stood up and bade her farewell. 3 days passed by quickly. When the beast races competition officially began, only a few dozen clans from the human race remained to watch the battle. Most of them were people that Lung Ruoxue knew. Ji Yun, Yu Chen, and the others had all stayed behind. On the day of the beast races competition, Lung Ruoxue and the rest arrived at the competition grounds early in the morning. Yu Chen, who had arrived a step later than them, couldn't help but tease them when he saw them. I've never seen you so enthusiastic in the human races competition. That's right. What's there to see in a competition between humans? Beastie is cuter. Feng De said disapprovingly. The beasts are cute, but the beasts that are participating in the competition may not be cute. Didn't you notice that there are many unfriendly gazes here? Yu Chen said in a low voice. The majority of the audience were magical beasts with only a small portion of them being humans. As a result, they seemed to stand out from the crowd. Not only that, but many of the magical beasts did not assume human form. Instead, they sat in the audience with the appearance of beasts. They looked even more petite and exquisite among the small mountains. On the right side of Lung Ruoxue and the others' seats, there was the Python clan. The giant pythons were all sticking out their tongues and would look at them with cold eyes from time to time, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. On their left sat the adorable members of the leopard clan. The leopards from the leopard clan were all in mimicry, which made them look even more adorable. These two extremes rendered Lung Ruoxue and the rest speechless. However, the leopard clan's attitude towards them was not much better than that of the pythons. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue finally realized the insurmountable gap between the magical beasts and the humans. If it were not for the fact that the competition was organized by the Divine Master's residence, the magical beasts would not even share a room with the humans. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue suddenly felt an itch by her feet. Lowering her head, she saw a palm-sized snow-white leopard rubbing against her feet. That cute little appearance made one's heart soften. Lung Ruoxue bent down and picked up the little leopard. At first, the little leopard only struggled for a while, but then it lay quietly in Lung Ruoxue's palm. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue took out a red fruit and teased the little leopard. Junior Leopard stretched out his little paw to take the fruit that was emitting an alluring fragrance. However, Lung Ruoxue would not let him take it so easily. After a few rounds of teasing, Junior Leopard pouted and his beautiful silver eyes became misty. Then with a wah sound, he burst into tears. Don't cry. Don't cry. Here you go. Lung Ruoxue saw that she had made the little fellow cry and hurriedly tried to comfort it. After the little leopard had obtained the fruit, it continued to stare at Lung Ruoxue with an aggrieved expression, as if it was complaining about her heartlessness. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue felt helpless. It seemed like this little fellow wasn't easy to coax. Thinking of this, she could only take out another fruit to bribe this little guy. However, who knew that Junior Leopard would only close his eyes slightly? It was obvious that he did not buy Lung Ruoxue's bribe. When everyone saw this, they could not help but laugh. You little thing, it's quite difficult to serve you. Lung Ruoxue was a little speechless. At this moment, a similarly snow-white leopard walked over from the neighboring seat. It looked at Lung Ruoxue and the rest with a nervous expression. Please return my child to me, okay? It was obviously a female leopard. When she spoke, her beautiful silver eyes were filled with uneasiness. Lung Ruoxue and the others were at a loss for words. Looking at the mother, it was as if they were bad guys who specialized in kidnapping and tricking children. However, they couldn't blame the female leopard for being so nervous. After all, when humans saw beasts, they would only think of forming a contract. This was especially so for a young beast, which was much easier to form a contract with than an adult beast. After Lung Ruoxue heard the mother leopard's words, she let out a soft sigh and placed the little leopard onto the mother leopard's back. When the mother leopard saw this, she thanked her softly and brought her naughty child back to their seats. At this moment, the beast races competition began under the judge's command. The rules of the beast race competition were not much different from that of the human race. However, each race could only send 3 participants. Moreover, half of the beasts would be eliminated in the preliminary round. From this, one could see how fierce the competition was. Among the beast clans, the most powerful were the 4 royal divine beasts, namely the dragon, phoenix, white tiger, and qilin. Next were the fox clan, lion clan, leopard clan, and other beast clans. Moreover, the strength of the beast clans was extremely uneven. The beast clan was the most powerful and had the noblest bloodline. Therefore, if there were no accidents, the champion would be one of the 4 royal divine beasts. There was almost no suspense. Lung Ruoxue was also very clear about this situation. The reason why she stayed behind to watch the battle was mainly to target the 4 king divine beasts. Not only did the 4 great beast kings have the highest status among the magical beasts, but their strength and status couldn't be underestimated even among the humans. After all, once they became reverent god level, their origins, races, and so on were no longer that important. It was also because of this that human powerhouses treated magical beasts as equals. If there was a conflict between the 2 races, it was usually resolved by the human and magical beast powerhouses. Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes scanned the representatives of the 4 king-level divine beasts who were seated closest to the main platform. The representatives of these 4 clans were seated in human form. Furthermore, the 4 clans had distinctive features. The leader of the dragon clan was dressed in a golden dragon robe. He had golden hair and golden eyes, and he had the aura of a king. The leader of the phoenix clan was a lady dressed in fiery red. It was as if her body was burning with flames, and the air around her was instantly roasted dry. The leader of the white tiger clan was dressed in white. He was as intimidating as a deity. As for the qilin clan, their leader was also a man. His appearance and temperament were all top-notch, and he had a gentle smile on his face. However, Lung Ruoxue could clearly see that the smile on this man's face did not reach his eyes. Chapter 1922, Search and Rescue, 3. The leaders of the 4 clans were all as strong as reverent god-level cultivators. It was obvious that their status in their clans was not low. However, the 4 of them ignored each other. It seemed like they didn't have a good relationship. However, Lung Ruoxue was not interested in their relationship. What she wanted to know more was the current situation of the 4 clans. However, it was obvious that no one would tell her about it, and the timing was not right. Following that, Lung Ruoxue watched the competition with a peace of mind. The beast races competition was much more bloody than the human races. After a few rounds of competition, all the participants were wounded. Fengde couldn't help but widen his eyes when he saw this. He said with a face of disbelief, "This is only the preliminaries, is there a need to go all out?" He could not understand. "What do you know? We magical beasts are all hot-blooded, and we won't put on airs like you humans." As soon as Fengde's voice fell, a giant python that heard his words roared in dissatisfaction. As it spoke, its huge snake mouth was still exhaling a foul smell, which made Fengde and the others miserable. They had to quickly cover their mouths and stare at Fengde with accusing eyes, as if to say, "Why are you talking so much?" Seeing this, Fengde shrank his head and didn't dare to make a sound. He just covered his mouth even more tightly. This smell was too horrible to look at. The stench in the giant python's mouth did not dissipate for a while. Instead, it showed signs of spreading and even spread to the leopard clan to the left of Lung Ruoxue. However, those mimicked junior leopards were unusually calm. They even cast sidelong glances at Lung Ruoxue and the others with disdain. Their red eyes were filled with the word "Qi." Humans only had this level of self-control. This taste is nothing. After reading the meaning in their eyes, Lung Ruoxue could no longer sit still. She stood up and left her seat. Fengde and the rest saw this and followed behind her. When they returned to their residence, Lung Ruoxue finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, she soon sighed. He had lost a lot of face today, being looked down on by a group of beastie. However, it didn't seem like they could be blamed for this. That giant python's breath was simply too smelly, even more smelly than the stink bombs she had refined. It would be strange if they could stand it. As soon as Fengde returned home, he was warmly received by Green Peach. When it was time for dinner, they saw the dark circles under Fengde's eyes, and they couldn't help but laugh. "Captain, your new look is pretty good." Someone joked, "Not afraid of death. Why can't you shut your mouth when you're eating?" Fengde was furious when he heard this. I just wanted to praise you." That person continued, "I don't need it." However, if you like this image, I'm more than happy to help you. Fengde said with a smile that was not a smile. The expression on his face was very unfriendly. No need. I still think that Captain's appearance is better. I don't dare to look exactly like Captain." The man quickly said, "It's okay, I don't mind." Fengde said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he rolled up his sleeves. "But I mind." After that person finished speaking, he ran off like a wisp of smoke. "You're quite fast." Fengde was furious. "Otherwise, do you really intend to make him end up like you?" Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. "Miss, this is also going through difficulties together." Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had spoken, Fengde immediately became listless. "So, we have to accompany you to smell the stench?" Lung Ruoxue's smile was extremely bright, but her dazzling smile made Fengde break out in cold sweat for no reason. He had a bad feeling. "Young miss," Fengde called out pitifully. However, Lung Ruoxue ignored his act and continued, "You've caused us to run away today. You've lost a lot of face. What do you think we should do?" As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Fengde with gloating eyes. "Miss, I've already been punished." Fengde pointed at the dark circles under his eyes. "That doesn't count. That's a punishment from Green Peach. But we haven't even settled the score with you yet." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. "Miss, you can't bully me like this." Fengde was so anxious that he was about to cry. Young miss was really too bad. How could she be like this? However, Lung Ruoxue didn't care about his bitter expression. After giving Lin Yuan and the rest a look, she was prepared to sit at the side and watch the show. When Lin Yuan and the rest received Lung Ruoxue's signal, they swarmed forward. "Arg! You bunch of brats! I won't let you off!" In an instant, Fengde's angry roar was deafening. Then, the courtyard was in a chaotic battle. Lung Ruoxue watched the show for a while before she was pulled away by the evildoer. Late at night, the hurried knocking on the door woke Lung Ruoxue and the rest up from their dreams. After the door opened, a group of flustered and exasperated leopards rushed in. Those leopards were aggressive. When they saw Lung Ruoxue and the rest, they did not have a good expression. At this moment, the female leopard that Lung Ruoxue had seen during the day walked up and looked at her with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I wanted to ask if you've seen my child." "Your child? Isn't it with you?" Lung Ruoxue was a little surprised. "It used to be, but it's gone now." Woo! After the female leopard finished speaking, she began to cry, and bean-sized tears kept rolling down. "If it's gone, then quickly go and find it. What's the use of crying?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless when she saw the female leopard bawling her eyes out. Could it be that the little leopard would return just by crying? "I've searched many places, but I can't find it," the female leopard said. After she finished speaking, she cried even more sadly. "Then it's no use for you to come to me. I didn't see it either." Lung Ruoxue was at a loss for words when she saw these leopards approaching menacingly. Did they think that the junior leopard was with her? My child has only come into contact with you. The female leopard was very reserved, but Lung Ruoxue understood. So what? Lung Ruoxue was truly speechless. Could it be what she was thinking? Human. As long as you return Shi-Er to us, we won't make things difficult for you. A leopard that seemed to be rather well respected opened its mouth and spoke. Obviously, it should be the leader of these leopards. I don't know where the little leopard is. How can I hand it over to you? Lung Ruoxue was helpless. Were these leopards still planning to cling on to her? Human. Shi-Er is still young, so even if you take her in as a beastie, she won't be able to help you much. Why don't you let her go, and you'll be willing to replace her as your contracted beast? Is that not enough? Another leopard said righteously. Even though they had come in an aggressive manner, they did not dare to fall out with Lung Ruoxue and the others. Instead, they had a good discussion. The main reason was that they were certain that their baby was with Lung Ruoxue. The leopard's words made Lung Ruoxue sigh. Did she really look that insincere? Moreover, just as the leopard had said, what could she do with the little one? She couldn't lift it with her hands or carry it with her shoulders, but she still had to feed it. No matter how she thought about it, it wasn't worth it. So, she really couldn't understand why these leopards were so stubborn and believed that the little fellow was with her. The more Lung Ruoxue thought about it, the angrier she got. If she knew who made her the scapegoat, she would never let that person off. I don't lack beastie. It's really not with me. After a long while, Lung Ruoxue finally spoke. Furthermore, in order to gain their trust, Lung Ruoxue had directly moved the Silver Wolf clan out of the bracelet. It should be easier to communicate with the beasts. The appearance of thousands of wolves immediately occupied more than half of the courtyard. Those fierce leopards could not help but widen their eyes after seeing these silver wolves. What was the situation? They were all dumbfounded. They're all my beastie. Lung Ruoxue explained. Really? The leopards couldn't believe it. How could a human contract so many beasts? Was he still a human? Your child is indeed not with my master. The Silver Wolf King had already heard their intentions from the bracelet, so it did not waste any words and spoke directly. As soon as the Silver Wolf King finished speaking, the mother leopard who had lost her child started crying again. The other leopards had grave expressions on their faces. Compared to Lung Ruoxue's words, they were more willing to believe these silver wolves. After all, even if the magical beasts had acknowledged their master, they would not harm their own kind. However, the Silver Wolf King's words had also shattered their greatest hope. The Silver Wolf King could not bear to see the leopard's desolated expressions. It was also a beastie with children, so it could naturally understand the pain of losing them. After thinking for a while, the Silver Wolf King suggested, "Master, let's help them find that little leopard. Maybe it got lost because it wanted to play. Fongda, you guys should help them look for it too." Lung Ruoxue nodded and instructed Fongda and the rest. Yes. Fongda and the others replied. Thank you. The female leopard said gratefully when she heard their words. After that, everyone split the work with the silver wolves and leopards. The beasts were responsible for searching from house to house. After all, the beast's sense of smell was far better than that of humans. Fongda and the others searched along the streets of the imperial city. They even searched the area within 100 miles of the city. At dawn, they finally found Junior Leopard's whereabouts. Chapter 1923, The Foodie Shi-1. It was like this. After Fongda and the others searched the streets, they walked toward the city gate. At the city gate, Fongda bribed the city guards and asked them which families had left the city from the afternoon to the late night. After getting an accurate answer from the guards, Fongda and the others split up and chased after those teams. There were 3 families that left the city, so Fongda and the others split into 3 groups. After all, in their knowledge, the possibility of Junior Leopard getting lost was not high. The biggest possibility was that he was taken away by others. Among the 3 groups, the other 2 groups received news very quickly. The other party did not have Junior Leopard in their hands. Of course, this was confirmed by the leopard tribe. On the other hand, Fengde had caught up with Murong and I and her group along with the woman who wanted Fengde to follow. When the woman saw Fengde, she was immediately overjoyed, and her face was full of smiles. Fengde, I didn't expect you to catch up to me. But have you thought it through? Are you going to follow me in the future? The woman said excitedly after seeing Fengde. As for Murong Fei, she was frowning, apparently not expecting to see Fengde again. When Fengde heard the woman's words, he indifferently said, "Miss, you're mistaken. I've never thought of changing owners. However, I really have something to ask of you. I hope you can cooperate. I wonder what business Brother Feng has? As long as I, Murong Fei, can help, I will definitely not shirk my duty." The moment she heard this, Murong Fei quickly expressed her position. "Thank you, young Master Murong." Fengde courteously replied. Then, he told Murong Fei about the matter and observed the expressions on Murong Fei and the rest's faces. He found that when he mentioned Junior Leopard, the woman's expression was extremely unnatural. Immediately, he paid attention to it. After Murong Fei heard Fengde's intention, although she was a little angry, but she still asked politely, "Brother Feng, do you think we took the little leopard away?" "No, I'm just here to confirm. It's best if young Master Murong and the others have nothing to do with this. Otherwise, if the leopard clan gets angry, I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable." Fengde reminded. The beasts that had come to participate in the elite competition would definitely not allow this to happen. This incident might even become an excuse for the dispute between the beast race and the human race. After all, the two races had maintained a peaceful surface for many years. After hearing Fengde's words, Murong Fei immediately calmed down and seriously considered the truth in his words. After thinking for a while, Murong Yuan had to admit that Fengde's words made sense. If the Divine Master's estate found out that Little Beastie was lost in the elite competition, they would not let it go. After all, it was a slap to the Divine Master's estate's face. Moreover, the Divine Master's estate had the obligation to ensure the safety of the participating beasts. This was the consensus of everyone. "Brother Feng, I really didn't see the little leopard you mentioned. We left after packing up today." After thinking for a moment, Murong Fei explained. At this moment, Fengde heard the leopard on his shoulder transmit his voice. "She is in their hands. I can feel She aura." When Fengde heard that, he immediately became 120,000% alert and said in a neither humble nor arrogant manner, "Young Master Murong, it's not that I don't believe you, but this friend of mine from the leopard clan has confirmed that the little leopard is with you. I wonder if you would allow us to search for it?" His words were very polite, but he didn't allow Murong and I to refuse. After all, it was not easy to get news of Junior Leopard, so he naturally didn't want to let it go. "What?" Fengde's words made Murong Fei unable to believe it. He had already said so much and the other party still didn't believe him? However, Beastie had its own way of finding its own descendants. Hence, Murong and I could not be sure of the accuracy of the other party's judgment. "Young Master Murong, you are a reasonable person. I hope you can cooperate with us." Fengde complimented Murong Fei. "I can let you check, but what if you can't find anything?" Murong and I asked indifferently. Her Murong family was considered to have a reputation in the divine world, and if this matter were to spread out, it would definitely damage their reputation. Hence, he had no choice but to find some balance for himself. Otherwise, if everyone were to treat him as a soft persimmon in the future, how would he be able to survive in the divine world? "If we can't find anything, we will apologize to young Master Murong and compensate you for all your losses. However, if that Junior Leopard is really in your team, I hope that young Master Murong can give the leopard tribe an explanation. After all, it's the period of the elite competition. If such a thing were to spread, I'm afraid that the beast tribe would not dare to come to the elite competition in the future." Fengde calmly suggested, and when Murong Di saw the confidence he was exuding, he was not sure if his request was right or wrong. However, Murong Fei still nodded her head, and the moment the woman beside him saw that Murong Fei had agreed, she immediately shouted out in dissatisfaction, "Murong Fei, How could you agree to such a thing? You're so useless. When the woman said this, her face was filled with disdain, and when Murong Fei heard her words, her face immediately turned ugly. You shut up. I know what I'm doing, Murong Fei said unhappily. She was extremely angry with this woman who couldn't see the situation clearly, because she was very clear that since Feng De and the others had caught up with them, they must have been prepared. If they refused to let them investigate, they would alert the Divine Master's estate, and it would be even more troublesome. You dare to shout at me? The woman's face was filled with disbelief, but this time, Murong Fei didn't even look at her and directly said to Feng De, "You guys check." Feng De nodded and gave a look to the leopard on his shoulder. The leopard understood and jumped off Feng De's shoulder and started to circle around Murong and I and the rest. After a few rounds, the leopard didn't say anything. Instead, it went around a few more rounds and sniffed from time to time. Feng De was depressed. Did he find the leopard or not? One must know that if they really didn't find out anything, Murong Fei would definitely take the opportunity to demand an exorbitant price, and he absolutely didn't want to give Murong Fei that chance. Finally, the leopard nodded. Then, it pointed at the woman with its paw and said, "She has She-Er's aura on her, she must have taken She-Er away." After the leopard finished speaking, Feng De heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, "Fortunately I found it. Otherwise, I'd really wonder if there's something wrong with the leopard's sense of smell. Why did it take so long to smell?" In fact, he had wronged the leopard. It was not that the leopard's sense of smell was weak, but that the woman's fragrance was too strong and covered the junior leopard's breath. That was why it took a long time to find her. "Are you sure?" Feng De pretended to ask. "Yes." The leopard nodded, then glared at the woman with a fierce look in its eyes. "Hand She-Er over, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you're dead." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.